Good evening and welcome to the Georgetown School Committee meeting of Thursday, April 9th, 2015. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will begin the meeting with approval of regular session minutes of March 26, 2015, public relations minutes of March 5th, 2015, public relations minutes of March 20th, 2015, as well as acceptance of warrants number 41V15 and number 40P15.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna talk to Vanessa. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good.
So just last week we had the drama club did a little coffee house and we had a bunch of the kids from the drama department and music department sing and it was a great show. Like everyone did an amazing job and we actually earned a lot of money, so that was great.
Oh, you did? Good.
Also, we have Disney coming up this Wednesday, so the band and chorus kids will be leaving and that'll be very exciting for all of us.
That sure will.
This Wednesday, yeah, and it's 84 degrees in
I was
Orlando
gonna
right
say,
now.
weather's gotta be better than here. How many kids is that, do you know?
I think 167
167 kids.
between the two.
It's a big number.
A lot of chaperones too.
And they're gonna be wearing their new uniforms, that's really
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah,
That
that is exciting.
It's a big effort.
We also we're starting our new quarter tomorrow, so the juniors and seniors have a little switch in their schedule, but that's about it. And also the National Honor Society is doing a prom dress drive, which we're collecting prom dresses that are at least 5 years old, and we're giving them to people that may not, it's like a foundation that collects them to give for other people, but we have to get them dry cleaned first. So that's like an awesome project that we're working on. And also we have the opening of the grand opening of the turf field
Yes,
on
we do.
Friday. So there's a softball game and then the girls and boys lacrosse games as well. That'll be on Friday night, so that'll be awesome. And then on April 30th, the American Field Service, which is the AFS, we're doing our culture fair at Pearlie. Kids get to come and they have a little their own little passport and they get to travel to each country and do a little craft, so it's very cute and we're excited to work
When
on
is that, Vanessa?
April 30th.
April
It'll be
30th.
at 5 o'clock.
Oh, that's
At
busy.
at the Pearly.
At the Pearlie, yep.
That's a lovely event. I go to that every year, and it really is so interesting to, well, first of all, the kids do a great job. They're very patient with the little ones, and they have this little passport, and when they go to each country, they,
We
they
do a little
note that.
stamp,
They
yeah.
stamp it. And they, they end up with, I still have my crafts that I made last year, I do it too. In fact, somebody had me doing the salsa or something, last year. That wasn't pretty, but it was very interesting. The kids, they get a good crowd, and the
Yeah.
families come, and
This
it's
year
really-
we have soccer, so get excited.
Oh,
We're
okay.
doing
I could probably do
Brazil,
that.
so
Okay.
get ready for that.
that was
Yeah.
very, very cool.
That's funny.
The same countries, Vanessa, or we?
No, this year we're doing Brazil, Kazakhstan, Egypt, Greece, Kazakhstan, excuse me,
Egypt.
Greece, and there's a fifth one. I totally am losing it right now. I'll get it back to you
Yeah.
though.
But could you wanna just explain quickly to the committee, like, how what you have the kids doing?
Okay, so for each country they do a little craft. So for Greece we're doing worry beads. So they'll make a little bracelet that has like the evil eye on it and everything. And then, so for Egypt we're doing, New Zealand is the other one,
New
excuse me. I'm like thinking about it now. New Zealand there's a big tribal group that's there, so we're doing like a little face paint, just for like a little fun for them. Brazil, we're doing like a little soccer game in the center, and then
Kazakhstan?
yep. There we're doing, it's an architecture, so they're gonna be doing popsicles, like a building of popsicle sticks, because there they have like, it's known for their architecture, so that's for that craft. And then Egypt is the pyramids, so they'll be doing a little, making their own pyramid. We'll have nets for them to build and put together, and then they can color it, so it'll be a cute thing to take home.
Wow, that sounds exciting.
Yep.
Very
That is fun.
Well, it's just really fun for the kids. They really do a good job too.
Okay, thank you for that
Thank you,
update. I can't
Dennis.
believe it's fourth quarter.
I know it's crazy.
Yeah.
This year
Almost done.
definitely did go by fast.
It's like
me.
28 days for the seniors.
Maybe not for the kids.
But who's counting?
Just counting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here from the public that wants to talk about anything on the agenda? No, thank you. Okay, we're gonna talk to, Mike Anderson.
And Mike,
We have an update on the move.
How's everybody doing?
Good, how are you?
Mike?
Good. So, you guys all got the moving plan in your package. I won't read it word for word, but
No.
we did send out all the labels to, all the schools this week in boxes to all the teachers. We're in the process of putting, a trailer up at the high school tomorrow, so we can start moving gym equipment into storage, because that's gonna be remodeled during April vacation as the start. We actually had a kickoff meeting today with, some of the people. And, basically, you know, we're ready to go. We put a lot of time into this and meeting with people and coordinating it and creating a schedule and getting the information out to everybody. I'm not sure if you have any kind of questions about it, but,
No, it's a ton
Sounds
of
like
work
it's gonna
though.
happen really fast, though. I mean, once
yeah,
kids
I
are
mean,
gone, and you're gonna be like,
That's true.
we're basically doing like, sort of like a hybrid system. The custodians will be moving stuff as well as all the movers. But because the timeline is so tight, we do need the movers.
yeah.
There'll be, you know, several of them. We're gonna be moving libraries and, you know, everything in Pembroke, everything in Pearlie, so there'll be a lot happening in a couple of weeks' time.
And you looked at multiple moving companies, right,
Yeah,
Mike?
we had 3 moving companies come out and look at it, and, we've used, Sterling, Wakefield Movers, and, Spry Movers came out and gave us quotes, and we just went with the cheapest company. We checked all their references, they're all good, they've all moved schools before, and they're all on the state bid list, so.
That's good.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you about, these, for the high school, these rooms, 216, 2090, and Elizabeth Marchetti's room is gonna move to the hallway?
Well, because those areas are being remodeled,
Yeah,
we're gonna store their furniture, like their desks and that kind of stuff,
okay.
in the hallway,
For the summer.
for the summer.
It's not
For
gonna
the summer,
stay
so,
there.
Yeah.
right, the rest of this is happening later, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Got
the
it.
only thing that's happening immediately
Is
is
the gym.
the gym, and because that starts in April vacation.
Okay.
We just have to pray for good weather because.
Yeah.
we're
They were
losing
talking
our
about that
gym, So
today.
there are gonna be some things outside, yeah.
Yeah,
So is the little gym gonna be open?
yes, yep.
That's where the classes are gonna be, the gym classes?
Yeah, if it rains.
Or
I
outside.
think they've been going on the turf field, or they can go on the turf field.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the top field's finally cleared off too. It only
Must be-
took
must
till
be
now.
Is
It's
it
almost
pretty
May,
wet though
but
up there?
it's wet, yeah,
be
it
wet.
just got cleared like yesterday.
Yeah,
We've been checking it daily to see.
yeah.
And the one far over where we have to do a bunch of work on that hill,
Mhm.
is still snow covered. I mean, it's pretty deep, so
And
it's,
we're gonna get some 60-degree weather, so
Yeah.
that
I would
will
assume.
help, I think.
yeah,
For this week, the kids would probably prefer to be inside.
yeah. But, I mean, eventually they'll be out on the turf or in the small gym
Now, did you put the fence out on the turf field?
yesterday, yeah.
Okay, so I saw it out there and it looks great. How easily, you know,
Well,
did you adapt? Oh.
each piece has to be moved, but yeah, I mean, it just takes a little time to move it back and forth. It was for softball and all little league games.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
set up-
it looks good.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure how, easy it was gonna
and
be.
the lights look
because
great. I don't know
supposedly-
if you had
No.
picked your kids up at night or not, but it looks really nice when it's all lit up.
The kids are excited for it.
Yeah.
How much surplus stuff is there going to be? I mean, how much are we reusing?
Well, there'll be
versus-
probably a lot of student desks at Pembroke.
Okay.
And we've actually had a few town departments walk through with us who do want things. Like a lot of the yellow chairs at Pembroke, the Council on Aging wants for their rooms.
Mhm.
They want a lot of tables. And I've been writing lists and kind of have everybody's wish list on file. Because
Great.
Camp Dennison wants some stuff.
The Girl Scouts
Yeah, I
wanted
saw that one.
the Girl Scouts, one of the Girl Scout troops wanted to, see if they could get one of the refrigerators for the Abundant Food Pantry, because they work in partnership.
Oh,
with them, so they wanted to
idea.
try to get that to happen.
And then we've been working,
Kiwanis have
Yeah,
a
the
couple, have
Kiwanis
their
also.
eye on a piece of. the
there's a
thing.
lot of nonprofit groups in town that want
That's nice.
some of it,
Yeah.
so it could go to use, and, some people at, Town Hall have asked for file cabinets and stuff like that. And then we've looked into, this couple companies that will donate whatever's left to, like, overseas to countries that need student desks and chairs and that kind
Oh,
of stuff,
that's nice. That's really nice.
Good.
instead of just throwing it out with, looking into that option.
Yeah, I'm glad it can go somewhere.
Yeah.
But you will have to surplus you'll have to agree to surplus that, so some, you know.
I'm gonna
it's
be
go
creating a
bring the
surplus list for like old, books that the library doesn't wanna bring over, and old, AV equipment that they haven't used in a long time, as well as furniture and that stuff, and I'll get it to Joan and Carol, and then,
Right, we talked about making one kind of general surplus list that, for things that have no value. And then for things that might have some value that, if town departments didn't want, that we could just advertise, and if people wanted to purchase them, then they could bid on them, so. We'll see, I don't know how much will have any value there, but,
yeah, we tend to use it till it's past its life expectancy.
You know, and you learn, you know, you do these projects, you learn something every day. I mean, I did not realize that the equipment that we're talking about, not the desks and chairs, but the equipment in the cafeteria, that when the architects early on plan to demolish a school, they actually write specs that allow the demolition company to own whatever's in the building, because what they do is they tend to bid lower because they feel they can sell
Right.
the, you know, the things at a profit to them. So I didn't know, who would know to ask that? So I was at one of the trailer meetings and they were talking about, you know, the demo company was gonna, you know, take all that stuff and sell it. Whoa, whoa, time out. Hold it, we got people in town who want this stuff, right? Like, should we have known that? And, so they said, well, let us check the spec, but we think you don't own it. It goes to the demo company. So I got a call a couple of days after from the Brait Construction Company that made some kind of an arrangement with the demo company to let us have that, which I thought was very kind of them, because, you know, and we made the case that, you know, this would be beneficial to the town, and a lot of organizations could really use it, and they've been really generous with this building, and, you know, so I was really very, very happy that everybody worked together, and I was happy to get that phone call. So now we can move forward with, you know, the list from people, what they want, and move forward with our process, so. Yeah, there would have been some very disappointed people.
Yeah,
But now I know,
absolutely.
if I ever do a building again, I'm going to ask, what are you doing
box.
with this if you're demoing it?
Ever do a building?
I'll make sure that's taken care of next time. Thank you,
Well,
Mike.
Mike, thanks for the update.
Okay,
It's
thank
a
you
lot
very
of
much.
work, so good luck.
Yeah, thank you
you.
so much, Mike. Alrighty,
Okay, we have Mr. Tardif here
yeah, come on up, Reg.
to talk about some civics.
Mike, you can come on up
Friends.
too, Rick, if you like, just come on. Yeah, no, no head to head, it's all a collaborative effort here, right, Reg? Actually, this former teacher, former student here.
Good to see you.
Alright,
This definitely caught my eye.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this one.
Okay, let me introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Reg Tardif. I'm a former social studies teacher at the middle high school, and former department head. I've been retired for 18 years. And civics is very near and dear to my heart. About a year and a half, maybe a year or so ago, I contacted Carol and Rick and expressed my concern about civics and where it was going because of the squeeze in the curriculum. And Rick spoke to Peter, and Peter wrote me a letter and calmed some of my concerns. However, a recent article in the Globe resurrected my concerns.
it's in the, you have it in your.
yes,
And if you can bear with me so that the viewers know what I'm talking about,
Absolutely.
I'll briefly
Please do.
read it. With woeful regularity, researchers confirm Americans' dismal knowledge of civics. In a nationwide poll of millenniums in January, 77% of Americans between the ages of 18 and 34 couldn't name even one of their U.S. senators. It's an old story reinforced for years by scholarly studies, popular news accounts, and even man-on-the-street interviews. Jay Leno used to do those.
Yes,
He used to go out in the street and ask
We
people
were pretty sad.
some simple questions, and it was extremely embarrassing to hear the answers. Americans don't know much about the workings of their government or the basics of its constitutional architecture. That lack of knowledge is not just disturbing in itself, it also poses a threat to the viability of democratic self-rule. Immigrants seeking to become U.S. citizens are required to meet a minimal standard of knowledge about civics and government as a condition of naturalization. From a pool of 100 questions, would-be citizens are tested on 10 and must correctly answer a majority. Some of the questions: how many of the amendments does the Constitution have? What are two rights in the Declaration of Independence? And who is the commander-in-chief of the military? The questions aren't especially demanding, and more than 95% of immigrants applying for citizenship pass the civics test. Yet 1 in 3 native-born Americans would fail the very same challenge, and that is scary. 1 out of 3. That contrast has spurred a nationwide effort, the Civics Education Initiative, to ensure that every American high school graduate passes U.S. citizenship tests as a condition of getting a diploma. In January, Arizona became the first state to make passage of the test mandatory. The new law requires high school students to correctly answer 60 of the 100 questions. North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah has since followed suit, and the lawmakers in other states have introduced similar bills. Of course, this initiative isn't a panacea. It won't fix everything that ails civics education in America, but making sure that high school students know at least as much about the fundamentals of U.S. government and law as foreign-born citizens do would be a step in the right direction. In a democratic republic, civic knowledge matters at least as much as math and science, and civic education initiatives can only make things better, and every state should be on board. When I was teaching civics a long time ago, I guess I used to pride myself with giving the students a hands-on situation. We would go to the behavioral court. We would go to jails and prisons and the State House. And we used to take trips to Washington on the close-up program. And have students go to sessions of the U.S. Supreme Court, meet their representatives in Congress. And it was an exciting week for the children. They were exposed to kids from other states, and the program was really, really good. Rick
Fantastic.
went, I don't know how many times after I retired. But these are the kinds of hands-on things that I think that some of the students are today missing in their civic education. And I understand the reasons for the squeezing of the curriculum. You know, we need technology, we need science, we need math, but we also live in a democracy, and we need to teach the kids on how to govern themselves and not to be led by the nose by politicians who manipulate the public. And the only way that they could know that is to know how their government is run. And I fear, after my 18 years of retirement, I see the country turning in a direction that it really concerns me. Between Congress and our international relations and the rest of it, I think that we are in serious trouble. And a lot of young adults don't even bother to go to the polls. They don't know how the government functions. When I was teaching, I had a teacher in my department who had students, John DeAngelis, it was his name, who had some students who were concerned about having a traffic light in the square. We all may laugh at that, but we didn't have lights in the square. And there was a safety concern that these students had. And John taught them how to change that if they wanted change. And he brought them to the selectmen, showed them how to write an article and bring it before the town meeting. And eventually, we got lights in the square.
Wow.
And that's the kind of hands-on
That's great, yeah.
things that I'm talking about. I come here tonight asking that we give the seniors that test that I just got through reading about out of 100 questions. Not that that would extremely please me, but it would be at least easing my concerns that the kids walking out the door have at least a basic knowledge of what to do as citizens. If in fact those test results are terrible, then we need to take another look at what we're doing. If they're okay, then I guess we're doing all right. But we have 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts, and we have 50 states, and apparently we're not doing a good job. And I guess everything starts at home. So I'm starting here.
Thank you.
Good place to start.
Well, actually, you really didn't start here, right? You went through, Rick has
Oh,
an
yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Rick had an opportunity, because initially when Reg came forward, he was just asking like, where is civics taught?
Right.
Because as in Rick's letter, he explains, and Reg
Absolutely.
speaks of it too, is that, you know, as the Massachusetts frameworks have continued to evolve, and they haven't stayed stable, they've continued to evolve. It isn't a tested subject yet, but, you know, depending on who's working on them, they, you know, the standards still have not been sort of set in stone. And so they gave in that process some the DESE gave some pathways that you could follow. And as Reg talks about this, like, some of the squeezing of the curriculum too, is also, you know, the content that needs to be taught in history, and, you know, is definitely, you know, somewhat different maybe than it was a few years ago, not necessarily better, we're just saying it's a little different. So one of the things that, you know, to answer Reg's question, because it's a great question, is so where do we teach civics education? So we don't teach a specific 9th grade course any longer, which is what Reg taught. But, you know, it was a good exercise so I told Reg at the time, I appreciate him bringing it forward, because it is a good exercise to go back and look in the curriculum to see where is local, state, and federal kind of government taught. And so also included in your packet was the response that Rick put together, showing, you know, how it's lined up in the coursework. And then Julie, I don't think you saw this, Reg, because this came as a result of the last conversation you and I had, but I'm happy to give you this copy. Julie looked at the elementary curriculum and shows the places where the themes you and I talked about are covered by grade. So I'll just give you that for your information as well. So that's where we started. And then, now these articles have sort of, because it's sort of kind of policy-ish, right? If we were to change, you know, some of the expectations, so that's why we're here having this conversation. So I did talk with Rick briefly about it and about the test, right? So maybe you wanna speak to that?
Yeah, we use the test in several places. So we have a standalone 8th grade civics class. It's for a semester, so I'm gonna come at it the long way if that's
fine,
okay.
however you wanna come
So-
at it.
Yeah,
Social
you-
studies for
you have
half the year,
Parents of
right?
Yes.
two 8th graders
Yes.
here, and
There you
I,
go.
So-
I have to say that my daughter right now is studying all about civics, and she's loving it.
Good.
But it's almost like she wanted that, like it's, because she asks me questions now, like things that I would think kids should at that age be questioning.
Yeah.
Because they're not, they're at the age where they need to know, like how our, why our laws are our laws
Right.
and who makes them
And they're at a
So-
unique age where they are kind of, I think, highly inquisitive.
Yes.
I used to teach civics in the 9th grade and found it was a great population for it. I found that when we moved it to the 8th grade, I think it still works.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
thoroughly
Oh, yeah.
enjoying it.
And my son Michael as well. We have a lot of good conversations.
Good.
About government at every level. And I mean, actually reading this, thank you for including this article.
Also
This is-
have engaged parents,
Yes.
so there's that piece of it as well.
Talked about the
but-
number of amendments and, 27 amendments and who our state senators are and do you know that? And he actually did. No, so I'm sure he's
So my-
probably talking about it in class.
To give you the long history, Reg taught me. Reg was my civics teacher, and he is one of the main reasons I went on and became a political science major. Went to school in Washington, D.C., studied at George Washington University, political science major, history minor, worked in small capacities, trying to find a kind of a job in D.C. I worked for a law firm, a public relations firm. I was interning for a congressman at one point. I interned for Rockwell International there in their congressional relations department. And what I found is I loved government. I loved government because of what they had taught me. John DeAngelis taught me how to tie a tie, in addition to other things too. So I had this, he's preaching to the choir. I had learned from them the importance of, in a representative democracy, that you have to have informed citizens who take an active role, and that's how you keep your rights protected, and that's how you keep power in check. What I found is from my experiences working on the microcosm, I didn't like it as much as the macrocosm. And so I went into teaching, and strange pathway enough, back to Georgetown I come after 3 years of teaching in Washington, D.C., and I take over teaching civics, of all things. So I guess what I want to stress is that, that pathway uniquely suits me to kind of safeguard the mission that, he handed off to me. I truly believe that the purpose of social studies education is to prepare, right now we're doing it through critical analysis of historic strands. But that ultimately is so that we use those critical thinking skills to be effective and active citizens. And I hit that drum every day with my students, with the teachers that I supervise. So I think what we're looking at is more of a, how do we do what we've always been tasked with doing in a new way that meets the framework standards. It used to be that you'd have a standalone government course, and you would study aspects of government in a compartmentalized kind of way. And you would use history as a way of illustrating things. So if I'm talking about the legislative branch making the laws, I would talk about landmark legislation. If I'm talking about the executive branch and they're executing laws, but I want to talk about a unique power of using executive orders, I'm going to use, again, historic examples. So the nice part about this is it put government front and center, and it, in a pretty clear way, said that this is important. And again, we use history as exemplars. Well, ed reform happens, and now what we're saying is the emphasis, for testing purposes, for what the state is telling us, is on critical analysis of an historic narrative. The question is, can we still teach government as effectively as we used to? And I think so, because in part what we're doing is doing it now in context. So what you do now is you cover history, and as you hit a governmental strand, you're teaching it in context. An example would be that you are talking about the election of 1796 and then the election of 1800. And those were some screwy elections where Adams and Jefferson, people of different parties, are together, and then Jefferson is tied with his running mate. And then you use that as a springboard to talk about the Electoral College. And you're teaching things in context. What I find sometimes when you compartmentalize the teaching of government is it's seen as an abstract. It's an engineering course now, and kids don't see the value of it. Versus if you're studying it as part of a narrative, and you're looking critically at understanding a time period in history, and they can glom onto that story, that's your hook. That's a great way to teach history or government in that case. So I think, again, I'm coming at your question the long way. We still do all the things that they used to. We do it in a different format. And one of the things that I wanted to assure Reg is he taught me well. And I know to, stress what our mission is constantly. Having said that, to focus on the civics test, I do think it gives us some security, I suppose. It makes us feel good. But it is a 100-question test bank that is filled with a lot of what, where, not a lot of how questions, not a lot of why questions. Why are there 50 stars on the flag? Why are there 13 stripes? There's questions on geography about contiguous states, and here's 3 states, and what's the 4th state? Give the kids in the 8th grade the civics test to do the very point that he just made, which is this: you don't know as much as the average person trying to immigrate to this country. You have a responsibility to learn these things and then some. And we do it again when we teach immigration. When we do it in the U.S., we give them selected questions again from that 100-question bank, and do it once again where we say, the average person who's trying to get citizenship here knows far more than you guys do. You have a responsibility. And we come back to that theme of a representative democracy depends on an informed citizenry. If we were using it as a barometer for how well we do teaching civics, then, to be frank with you, we teach to the test. And, we'll get kids to pass it. But I think what they get is.
That's the problem, that all of these, civics tests that are being mandatory, that teachers will teach to the test and the
Right.
kids will pass it.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily means that they have a hands-on
Exactly.
knowledge to do the job.
And we still haven't
It's
gotten to the
only
why questions.
superficial, yeah, it's only superficial knowledge, and I agree with Carol, that I don't think we ought to give it and make it mandatory that they pass it. Be another test, and the kids have enough tests to graduate, they don't need
But it's a good
another one.
barometer.
Yes,
I agree.
yeah,
We use
yeah.
it just a little early to make that point that you stress, that, they need to see that there is often a lack of knowledge within students, and that ought to be a compelling reason why they want to learn.
What's the last class that kids would take? It would be a U.S. history, like
Usually
in
it's
11th?
US 1, or, well, actually, we use it in US 2. We use it in in our contemporary affairs classes as well. We use it in a lot of places.
So I guess I was
'Cause
just wondering if it's 11th grade and it was just one of the assessments that was sort of part
It
of the course.
is. So, like, within the
then
11th
you could
grade,
have
we-
a sense of whether or not
Right.
the kids
Yeah.
What
at
the
the
score would be.
end would, you're not
You get a
track-
feel for what they're doing.
Yeah, because I think I asked you, like,
Yeah.
what is your sense of since you do use it, like,
Right.
do the kids know 60% of the
Initially,
information?
they don't do well, and then after we have hit home the point that you ought to know this, and we go over it, they know it quite well.
Yeah.
I think it's a matter of, like, any skill set, unless you do some work to maintain it. Like, you give a kid, if I popped in front of you right now 50 states and capitals, I know, Vanessa would do phenomenally on it, but that's a skill set that you maintain, right? Should I do it on camera? Hint to that. She knew her states and capitals when it was time, but if you don't continue to kind of maintain those skill sets, you lose it over time. So it is possible the kids, forget some of that. And our job, again, is to make sure in every grade level, every subject, we find excuses to kind of cover that content so that they maintain it. And then, I'll make a point too about, Reg had talked about a lot of things that put kids into the community and, took government from an abstract and taught, gave them opportunities to see it more in practice. I brought my kids here for this reason, so they could see kind of government in practice. That, and I can't find a babysitter. I think my father's actually downstairs somewhere on the rail trail. He works on the rail trail. I watched him walk in the building, and I thought, well, that could have been my babysitter. But, we do have a number of things that we do that parallel what Reg talked about, where kids do, work that teaches them the value of being a citizen. And,
Even law,
yeah,
the
the
students
youth and
go
law
to
course.
the prison and
You
And
know,
then
you
modern
guys-
issues right now,
Right.
too. We still
modern
talk about it.
issues, right.
You guys are doing the internet, you're doing the, with the student council, the event that you were just talking about, that counts.
Right.
I'm taking 2 students tomorrow to Student Government Day. There's 2 students that, you know, were elected within our school district, and they go represent Georgetown, and there's a model government day. They shadow legislators, and the governor comes and speaks, and they work in committee, and they pass laws, and so we do a lot of those things still. It's, again, maybe done a little differently. It's more often the community service work we do, or through not student council, but,
National Honor?
thank you, National Honor Society, and the work that they do for tutoring and mentoring and that kind of stuff. So it's there, it's just often, again, in a different package.
And can you just review for people in the audience what the required social studies courses are to
Sure.
graduate?
Yeah.
And then the electives for students that wanna go further with
So
them?
with ed reform, it became largely a kind of a history sequenced pathway that we picked up on. So if you want to take it all the way to the middle school, they start with an ancient world history course in the in 6th grade it's geography, in 7th grade it's ancient world history, in 8th grade once again it was history, and it just picked up in terms of time period. And that was one of my things that he trained me to do, was to look at that and say, man, that's a lot of history. Where is the other disciplines within social studies? And so there was a risk to it, but at that time, and I want to say it was, I'd have to look at the year, but I want to say it was somewhere around 2000. We made a conscious decision to take the 8th grade, put civics in it, even though it wasn't in the state frameworks in terms of the pathway, do a half year of history when you get to feudalism, which talks about, too much land and a king's inability to protect that land versus, marauding Germanic tribes, your Huns, Vandals, Visigoths, Ostrogoths. He divides power, and he divides land, he divides power, and that was our springboard to talk about power and government. And then what we do in the 9th grade is pick up where they left off. So again, it's world history. And then we do two years of U.S. history. So there's a U.S. 1 your sophomore year and a U.S. 2 your junior year. Senior year is electives. We have a 4-year social studies requirement now, so they can pick and choose between youth and the law. We have what are kind of current affairs courses, but we call them American controversies. There is sociology, psychology. We have a film class now, a history and film class. Who am I leaving out? There's AP US History, there's AP US Government. And so there is another opportunity to kind of study government intensively on a senior level.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's it. How are my kids doing back there, Carol?
Doing okay.
All right.
Held her hand and walked out the
Walked her
door.
out.
So
Good switching.
Time to go, Dad.
assuming that's a good thing.
So when is the test administered, the 100-question test?
We do it in the 8th grade.
8th, okay,
Yep.
it's at the end of the school year?
No, it's
No.
we don't give it. We give it more as like we were talking about, as a
an
barometer,
activity.
as a way of saying.
Okay, cause I'm
Not
just,
an assessment. Not, it
Yeah.
doesn't,
Right.
yeah, it's
I'm
just
just
to
wa-
say,
okay,
well,
so
how much do you
8th
know as
grade.
much
Do you
as
know?
somebody who's immigrating to our
Right.
country knows, yes.
So it's fairly informal how we
Yeah.
use it. If
yeah,
that helps.
okay.
And whenever we do use it, it's fairly informal.
So I think Reg's question is there a way to sort of make it more formal where it fits? You don't want it to be the standalone thing that kids are memorizing for. You just
No,
want it to
no,
be,
no.
is there a reflection of accumulation of
Right.
knowledge?
No, but
And
I
I think
think,
that's-
after the kids accumulate, some knowledge from the 8th grade to the junior year,
Yeah.
maybe at the end of the junior year, or
Re-administer.
midway through the senior year, you could administer, a test and see how much the kids retained. And,
One
I
of
think
your
if you were to
assessments.
look at any of our history tests, there are government strands in it.
Yes,
We
yes.
so okay, it's a US 1 course, but we're talking about McCulloch versus Maryland. And, we're looking at the idea of the supremacy clause, and we're looking at the idea of implied powers. Okay, we've done it with a history strand, but that's a government strand.
Yeah.
If you're looking at, Jackson, and you're looking at him losing winning the popular election, but losing the electoral college, and then you've got a runoff in the House. And you've got the corrupt bargain, that's again a history strand. But we're teaching government with it. So I maintain if you look at our, if you look at our test, you can pull
you're
out all
assessing
kinds
it
of
all.
questions on government that are a lot more meaningful than what's on the civics test. So I think the purpose of the civics test is simply this, it's to wake you up. It's to let you know that you have a responsibility to know more. Beyond that, I don't see a tremendous amount of value. I mean, we can, again, I'm certainly happy, again, any excuse to teach government. I'm doing it right now. I'm looking for some sort of excuse to teach somebody. My kids left and they're not hanging out for it. So, we can certainly
think
do it, but
Linda's
I
keeping
think
her
you're
eye.
not going to, the results will be, we drill the kids and they'll get great scores. But I don't know if their understanding and depth of government is any better, and I don't know therefore if it's a good use of time.
Would you say, Rick, though, if after I think Reg is talking about accumulation of knowledge, that even though, you wouldn't have the kids study for it, it just would be, here's just another assessment, just
Sure.
for your own benefit.
Yeah, we could use it again to kind of as a reflective piece
Just-
about,
yeah,
did you retain it?
Did you, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
how
do
much-
you
How
know
much
it?
did you retain in
Yeah.
3, 4 years?
I think he's just looking for something that's not
exposed.
formal.
Sure.
But something that's part of the curriculum, right?
Absolutely.
That just, as a reflection,
Yeah.
as a, just a way to kind of,
Well,
okay.
and it's
Can
a
we
way
count
to
it, Carol,
kinda-
can we count it as a DDM?
Oh, you're very clever. Julie, can you count it as a DDM? Yes, of course you can.
All right, done.
You don't have to worry about DDMs, Reg.
Thank you.
That's a new phenomenon.
I do wanna say that I do applaud these states though, that have gone ahead and have made that a requirement. I don't know if personally, I think as a graduation requirement,
Yeah.
that, I would be for that. I certainly do think though, that the administration of a second test.
Right.
I do think it's very important.
Sure.
And I agree with you, though. I think you are getting it into the kids' heads. But it's embarrassing when we do see adults, when we ask a
Sure.
simple question about our government or our country, and
Yeah.
they have to pause and
Right.
think about it.
Yeah,
So that to me is embarrassing.
absolutely.
I know junior year I had Miss Schwarzkopf and we did an immigration section, and on it she showed us questions from the test, and like from there we were learning what does it mean to be an American, and from there increasing with each section, what does it mean to be American when you learn from this, and like with those questions that's what we learned. But I know, Mr. Tardif, you might like this. The Northeast Regional Student Advisory Council talked about one of our major things we wanted to work on, but kind of got pushed aside, was to create a civics course, a curriculum for a civics course so that a school could do it. Because a lot of us found that in our schools it's like some schools aren't able to push that through as much. And so we did start something to do an elective of it, but it kind of got pushed aside with our new guidance and college studies program that we started up instead. But that was something that came up across the student advisory council.
Yeah, my
That's
only fear
interesting.
is that,
Students thought that was important.
and this is just me, but I feel as though that we're crowding the curriculum with so many things that a lot of the basic things, like even writing, the kids will not be able to write a paragraph in freehand because they become welded to the typewriter and the keypad.
Not the typewriter.
You're right. But it looks like
I
a
have a
typewriter.
typewriter. I have a typewriter. I get it.
But
Typing
in that we
yeah, me
just
too.
keep squeezing
I agree.
things out of the curriculum, and that's my fear, that because we don't want to extend the school day. Everybody wants to play sports. I was a big jock in high school too, and everybody wants to play sports so that 2:30 everybody's got to bail out and go down to the field and play and all this kind of stuff. And I think, as Rick indicated, that just before I left and then retired, that I was on the verge of extending U.S. history a second year because we didn't have enough time to cover things like Korea, Vietnam. We just, there was no time to do it all.
And a lot of places
it's
still
just-
have
They
only
added
a
20 more
1-year
years since you
USS.
left.
I know
They
it.
added 20 more to it.
I know it. I know it. So it just accumulates, you know, and it's just a question of how much
What's
time,
important.
you know, how much
Well,
time.
I think it is an age-old question in education, which is what defines the educated person? And who sets that?
Yeah.
You know, who determines? Who among us is most qualified to determine how we define what it means to be an educated person? And there, I think that answer is as varied as the diversity that we find where we live. And so it's, I think it's always a good question that those of us who work in education continue to always hold that question in our minds. What are we doing? What defines what we're giving our children, and to what end? And I do think my experience on this committee for the past 3 years has shown me that, and tonight's just reinforcement, because I don't know you, and I'm sitting here going, wow, this is who we have teaching in Georgetown. Again, I'm impressed. Again, I'm feeling so grateful to live in this community where we have people committed to education and who are having these important discussions. And to know that you're here and that this is a product of, you know, that this is something that seems
that's
to be
my-
happening
you know,
in this
see,
community.
I guess
So-
that's my fear, is that
They're back.
this is what's happening in Georgetown. I think we have a great school system in
We
Georgetown.
do.
Obviously, I'm partial, but I think we have a great school system here. But, you know, I read about, you know, some other cities and towns, and that their priorities are not the same as ours. And that, you know, they'll devote more time
But
to,
maybe that's how it should
you know,
be.
technology or mathematics versus that of government. But to me, all those other things are important, but they're not as important as living in a democracy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because without that, we have nothing.
That's right, absolutely.
I think I've been involved in civics education engagement for the last 20 years, in Model Congress,
disclosure.
Model UN
Doesn't matter
programs. And I think they're great programs, and I would love Georgetown to get involved, but I'm not plugging my own programs, don't worry. Reg, I think to your point, community service program, NHS, Key Club, all of these things are great, but they're not really. You're learning about you're learning to be a good person. You're learning to be a part of your community. You're not learning how it works. You don't walk away from that. You say, hey, we ran a good program and it was fun and we helped people, but you're not understanding the problem. You're not trying to solve the problem, and you're not seeing what happens after you think you solve the problem and unintended consequences happen. And I think that's one of the problems sort of with, I'm not trying to challenge you, but I read these and I say, well, I mean, sort of, but not really.
I don't think there are, I wouldn't stand on those alone. What I would stand on is our curriculum.
Absolutely, and I agree wholeheartedly on the
If
curriculum side.
but if you're looking for ways in which we then try to take the skill sets that we give them and then put them into effect, yeah, I do think that, you know, if you look at, again, what student council is doing, and they're having to identify issues that are of a concern to them and think about how they're going to work on those issues in a constructive manner.
Right, that's the one that I left off when I was
Yeah.
listening. No, I think student council, no, but I do agree. I think the cause and effect, the identifying the problem, cause and effect is a huge thing
Right.
that's missing. I also think the world has gotten a lot trickier. I encourage you to look at New Hampshire when they brought a bunch of students who wanted to make the red-tailed hawk the state bird of New Hampshire, and they got ridiculed at it. Like, they got a terrible lesson in how government works, which I thought was terrible. You know, they learned it, they learned a lesson, but not exactly the one that was supposed to happen.
They would learn.
You know, I hesitate on a test because I do think the net effect is some level of teaching to it, or if it doesn't matter, it's not going to be taken seriously.
Right.
But I would encourage a Model Congress program.
All right.
And the only reason I say that, and it's not my own, it gives the students who are specifically interested the opportunity to go 100 miles past
Right.
what's in the curriculum, which is incredibly important. But it's hey, McCullough, Maryland, Marbury, Madison, like all of these things are important to me, and I want to learn how they work.
Right.
And there's a place for me to go.
Right.
spending a week or a long block on it, you can't. You get the taste of it, but you don't have the opportunity to actually
Right.
understand it and realize, hey, I actually.
Reg had mentioned the close-up program, and that was pretty akin to what you're talking about.
Right. Yep.
We haven't been able to run that in probably, I don't know, 7, 8 years now. It's an expensive trip. A handful of students are interested in it, and it becomes this, okay, if I have 7 kids, it costs X. If I have 6 kids, it costs Y. And so there's this, everyone turns their key at the same time or you don't go.
Right.
And invariably you get kids that are interested, but when it comes time to, okay, we need to cut checks, and, you know, the civic groups do a wonderful job helping raise money, but it's, you know, the cost of the trip was close to 2,000. And when you put that up against, like, you know, Disney,
Which one's
you
winning?
see Disney, you know, my daughter perked up when she heard Disney, so you can imagine, you know, what kids do. So I do think, did you do it again?
Yep.
So, I do think that I look for those meaningful moments. Like, again, like tomorrow is going to be one, but it's for the 2 elected students, and I wish I could bring every kid there.
Right.
We do a trip to the court, and they get to see that through Youth in the Law. I'm hearing what you're saying, and I do think that it would be nice to find more meaningful constructs that allow them to not just experience the idea of being civic-minded and understanding that we have a collective responsibility in terms of being a community. That, you know, if you want rights, then you have duties, and the duties include volunteerism, and it includes, you know, looking to serve locally, that kind of stuff. So we constantly look at that, and maybe this brings it, you know, a little bit full circle. One of the things that makes Georgetown unique is the fact that within departments we have common time. So every other day we get to sit down as a department, and sometimes I have a definitive agenda. Sometimes things come up organically, and one of the things that came up was, hey, how are we doing teaching government? And so, you know, you had been mentioning that it's different community to community, what they emphasize. And you had mentioned that, you know, technology sometimes crowds out other things. Well, the nice thing we do in Georgetown is we continually sit down and we evaluate the balance. We're constantly sitting down as professionals and saying, how are we doing? You know, what are you teaching today? Where are you going tomorrow? What issues are you having? What help can I give you? And this was an opportunity to kind of talk about collectively, what do we see as our central purpose and mission, and how well are we doing with the civic strand? And I think that in part is a tool to keep things in balance. Because there are going to be 100 historians who say, I want more history. That's part of your cultural literacy. You ought to know certain figures, you ought to know certain dates, you ought to know the significance of certain iconic moments. And then a civics teacher is going to push back and say, no, it's government. And then a literature teacher is going to say, I want more time for literacy skills. And, you know, I want them writing the old-fashioned way because there's a tactile value to that. And then the technology teacher is going to say, no, 21st century skill sets. Well, that's an endless kind of debate, but the nice thing is, through the conversation and the debate, I'm a big believer in the pluralism theory. Federalist 10, like we're doing civics, right? And what it says is all these competing factions balance each other out. And I think we have a mechanism for that in Georgetown. So, you know, what I'd carry forward is, it is going to give us some valuable feedback if we do another diagnostic our junior year. And there may be some opportunities for more of those practical kind of hands-on experiences with regards to government. And I'm thrilled, again, as a political science major, that I've got so many people telling me I'm right. And it's not just about, you know, the MCAS, and it's not just about, you know, other kind of testing.
Yeah, because we can get caught up in testing, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's good, but it has limitations.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, I don't want to belabor this, I just wanted to make a point, and I think I made it, and Rick helped me more than I thought.
Again, you raised me well.
Thank
I
you.
know,
both.
I do, I really appreciate you both taking the time, and,
Thank you.
and what you provided, both of you, was very interesting read for me. And I had seen it on the Today Show a couple of weeks
Yeah.
back, so I mean, it's definitely making people stop and think,
It is.
and that's what we need to do, right?
I was joking with Reg when I saw him on my calendar. I said, because I saw it on Good Morning America, and immediately I said, oh, Reg is gonna be all over this. I know he's gonna talk to me about it. And then I saw him on my calendar. I'm like, yes, I knew you were coming. So it
Reg
worked
used to
out.
have a binder of newspaper clippings, and that's halfway how he ran, if he was talking about something and he wanted to prove it to you, he'd go into his
He'd go
binder
right
and here's the newspaper clipping. So I'm glad to see he still
It
does
was
that.
great.
Oh, yeah.
I was
Yeah.
I
happy
think
to-
it's a great conversation to have, and I'm kind of sad that we don't have the Washington trip anymore, and I
Yeah.
would just like to
Yeah.
heartily recommend, if people can, if families can, to take a vacation to Washington. One of the best
Yeah.
family trips we have ever taken was to Washington, and we went and we saw all
I think what
the
we need to do is
landmarks
find
as
a
a
good,
family,
good
and
wealthy sponsor.
That would work.
I mean, I
Can you
used to go
recommend
out
someone?
and raise money, and have, people sponsor.
There are,
You know, some of the
organizations
kids,
that do that.
Knights of Columbus used to kick in
Yeah.
some money, and so on. And
doesn't
that
need to
was
be a
good, and that
$2,000
defrayed a lot of the cost.
When you're
the
raising
kids
$100
were
at a
going.
time, it's,
Yeah, well, you
it's a
don't
lot
need
of
to.
money.
There are ways to.
but also when you go as a family, you might, have a little bit more time, and everybody can discover together the
Yes,
National
yeah.
Archives and the
right.
the White House and the Arlington Cemetery and the Congress.
there's so
It's
much.
very exciting. I'd love to do it again. I really would. There's so much to do. You can't possibly.
Well, the Closer program was
Spend it
good
all.
in that respect. It wasn't just government.
And it makes
No.
it
Because the
makes
kids
it
mix
real.
with
It
other
brings
kids
it-
from
an
different
audience, yeah.
states,
What?
Yeah.
and
Oh, somebody
Yeah.
has a
And it-
question?
I just have a comment to
Oh.
make that I
Great.
wanted to share that might help it a little bit. Sorry, science teacher here, but still I love history a lot. The Edward Kennedy Institute just
Yep.
opened at the end of March.
right.
And if you aren't all aware, it's an institute to the late Senator Ted Kennedy, right next to the JFK Library in Dorchester, and it's designed to do exactly
Model
what you
Congress.
want. It's a mock Senate that is set up just
very
like a model of a Senate, and they want schools to bring students in to see how to vote for a bill, and it talks all about your, the senators, your Congress, and how it all works. And I think there you go. There's your sophomore or junior field trip.
Yeah.
Peter,
The
Peter, can we do
entire
another field
class-
trip?
Bring the entire class. And I think it would be a beautiful.
Peter's a
thing.
history
Beautiful
guy. Of
civics
course he'll
lesson
support
I
that.
do
without
too.
having to go all the
I
way to
agree.
DC.
That's
Yeah.
an
Excellent
excellent suggestion.
Just
Thank you
opened,
for
what,
bringing
2
that
weeks
up.
ago?
Yeah, just
Wow.
opened, that's right,
Wow,
that's a
that's
great
awesome.
resource right in our backyard,
The
that's
only one, yeah.
fabulous,
Only one like
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
great.
Boston
Great.
is a
yeah.
mecca of
Oh,
historic.
It's
Yeah.
important to
History.
bring it
It
to
sure
life,
is.
to
Yeah.
have students, step out of the classroom and.
So leaving here, I can feel well assured that we're gonna have some kind of a test in the junior year, just to ease our minds.
As a diagnostic,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, okay, all right.
and we'll give you the results. No, I think it's very important to get it out there.
Well, I think
what
Rick
those-
was thinking about it more as it was an opportunity for reflection. I don't think we were thinking we were collecting the data and passing it out, but I guess we can have a further conversation
That might be
about it.
used as a
I think if
tool
you-
for
if
Rick
you
too,
are-
you know?
'Cause it-
You have
'cause
to think about how you want to use it. If
Yeah,
what you
it's-
want to use it for is to get kids to think critically about what they know,
Right,
then you use it one way.
right.
If you're interested in using it as a barometer for how healthy is our understanding of civics, then you're going to get very different results. And, that reporting that changes it. Once you put it public, it all of a sudden,
Well, then people start to teach to it.
Right.
The goal here is to have a cumulative, that's why we look at the curriculum K-12, right? To have a cumulative base of knowledge, right? And then if this, I don't even know how well this test measures the standards, but it's clearly, sounds like it's measuring general knowledge.
yeah, and there are good questions within there. How many senators do you have? And,
Yeah, yeah.
who's the chief executive?
But you would hope that as part of the US course,
We go a little
at the
beyond that,
end,
yeah.
it's kind of like, okay, now here's probably the end of your history, other than little
Right.
electives that you might take. So,
But yes, we will do it in the junior year. We will certainly use it
part
as
of your
a,
curriculum.
as a way to kind of reflect, and I'm gonna, between the two of you, I think and I've got Peter on record. That was,
This is recorded,
yeah,
this is.
so we've got a field trip in the works.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you both for your time, and your
Thank
kids
you
were
to
very
your
well.
children.
Oh, well,
for
that's on
being
record
so-
too.
That's worth at least an
Wait for
ice
the
cream
car ride
cone
home,
or
it's just gonna
something.
roll south.
I hear you.
Rick, that's worth at
Thank you,
least an
Mr.
ice
Carter.
cream cone or something.
Thank you.
What's that?
Thank
Worth
you.
at least an ice cream cone for your
Oh, so look
children.
what you did to me. I gotta find a store that's open.
Well, maybe not tonight. They can wait.
I know, and this little one has been
Yeah,
so
Mia,
good too.
that's Mia.
You've
I
been
mean,
so
yeah.
good. My kids would be like, Mom, can we go? Can we go? And they're much older than you.
No, Dominic was here one night and he was,
He wasn't happy about it.
but he wasn't happy, but he was quiet.
Let's be honest. He was quiet.
So,
We want to talk about the AP.
yeah, come on up, gather round.
Yep, come on up. Of course.
Yes, you're coming again, you can come again, Rick, and Peter, you can come too. So just grab up a chair, to sit wherever, you know, pull up around the table. Mia, you can come too. So, you know, we got the news on the AP scores, and I was speaking to Barbie, and I said, gee, wouldn't it be, yes.
Can we
You'll
introduce
introduce,
everybody?
Yes, we will, yeah.
So I said, wouldn't it be really great to have people come to the school committee meeting and have an opportunity for, you know, the committee and the public to know who teaches our AP courses, and also just to recognize and celebrate, you know, the hard work that you do. I mean, this wasn't a fluke this year. You know, we watch the AP scores every year, and they're always solid in Georgetown. And so, you know, I think it was just important, and the committee might have some opportunity to ask you some questions. I know there are people that wonder about, you know, what is the AP curriculum, how does that all work? So, you know, it's just, you know, but mostly it's a recognition, a celebration of the work you and your students, you know, have done and continue to do. And it's not an easy task to get the kind of scores that your students were able to produce. They don't get to do that by themselves. You have a big role. So it really is great. So yeah, I think we can start over at the end here, Kate. Yep.
Would you like me to introduce myself?
Yes.
I'm Kate Cataldo, and I teach AP Biology.
I'm Mike Murphy, I teach AP English Literature and Composition.
I'm Chris DeFranco, I teach AP US History.
Amanda Gerard, I teach Spanish Language and Culture.
I'm Linda Burnell, I teach AP Calculus AB.
I'm Rick Hastings, you're thoroughly sick of me, I teach AP Calculus.
Should never sick of you.
I teach AP History.
He does.
And you're the sub, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Peter, do you want to say anything as a way to introduce this, and then?
Sure, I mean, it's hard to add to what Carol said. I mean, we have an outstanding AP program, and like she said, the kids don't do it all by themselves. We have great kids, and we congratulate them, but these are the guys that are teaching them and putting the food on their plates for thought, and it's a very intense program. A lot of people think, well, it's like a college course, but it really isn't like a college course. It's like a graduate course. This is what they teach does not resemble an undergraduate course in any way. So it's very, very intense, and it's constantly changing. They have to submit their curriculums to the College Board and for approval, and I have to verify that every year, and it's been constantly being revamped. I know we just got over a makeover in biology, and in U.S. history just changed the format.
Spanish language.
Spanish and anybody else. It's so it's not like, you know, they have this curriculum in place and they've been doing the same thing year after year. They don't. They adapt, and they do a fantastic job, and we're very, very proud to have the best AP program in the state.
I know. I was thrilled when I just happened to, on a Saturday night, I was going through my Twitter, and I came across it, and so I looked at it, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, that's Georgetown. I was so thrilled. Like, no one was around me. I wanted to share it, so I sent you guys the emails, and I just wanted to so I sent my friends that have kids that aren't in the middle high school yet, and they were so excited. They're like, you have to get the word out. So I was just so proud. I really felt like I live in a community that has these great teachers, great kids, but I really appreciate, what you do, because I know it's very difficult. And I would love to actually kind of take a look at the curriculum as a whole and just get an idea, get a sense of what these kids really are faced with.
I don't have a child in the high school yet, so I would just love to know who's taking the AP courses. What is it, which of our students, how many of our students are taking AP courses? When are they taking them? Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior? Is it open at any time in your high school experience, or is this something that
So,
you?
I looked into this a little bit because, you know, I think what happens is we're number one in the state, and then the question that follows is, are we, you know, teaching the same kind of pool of kids that other schools are? How do our numbers really stack up? The College Board did a study on it, and the 5-year average is that by senior year, 32% of seniors will have taken an AP.
Of seniors nationwide?
Seniors nationwide
Okay.
will have taken an AP. So somewhere between their junior and senior year, they'll have taken one AP on average.
Okay.
33% of the students. We're right around, I asked guidance next to kind of look into our numbers, and we're right there. So,
Okay.
you know, in some years we're, you know, mid-20s, some years we're closer to 30%. But 25 to about 30% of our students over the last, I think, 4 years have taken an AP.
And do you take AP courses in your junior or senior year typically?
It depends, what subject you have. Do you wanna quickly just say what?
Sure. So AP Biology is offered to juniors and seniors. You have to have taken biology and chemistry are prerequisites.
Okay.
And those are also prerequisites in terms of the AP in general. The College
Sure.
Board, in order to take a AP Biology exam, they suggest that you have that prior knowledge in both
Sure.
chemistry and biology, and you remember it.
Yes.
So that then we can teach all the next level of
Yes,
stuff
absolutely.
to them. So it depends from year to year. Right now I have predominantly juniors and one senior. Other times I have more seniors, and it's an even mix, so
Okay.
it varies depending upon, you know, when the students have taken those two classes.
In case students take biology in the 9th grade and some in the 10th?
They can either take it in 9th or 10th grade, and then chemistry in 10th or 11th, and so then students would be taking it either 11th or 12th.
Okay, great.
AP English Literature and Composition has traditionally been exclusive to seniors. It should be noted, though, we've had some exceptions in recent years, some students who have really taken advantage of every opportunity within AP, namely, last year, Brian Bahar comes to mind,
Yeah.
who not only took APs in pretty much all of our classes, but he actually went outside and prepared for AP exams that he took at different schools.
Wow.
So, you know, that opportunity and option is out there for other students as well. Before we get to Chris, I'm very lucky to be around the professionals I'm around, and I know how skilled they are. It's also, I think, this accomplishment is indicative of the teachers as a whole. So this is kind of a culmination. It's not just happening at, you know,
Right.
the junior and
Sure.
senior level.
You're right.
So I'm thankful to everyone in my department as well as all the other departments, including the middle school.
Sure.
So-
Yeah, absolutely.
I
second what Mike said. No, so AP US History is generally a junior elective, so they'll
Okay.
take 1 year of US 1, and it really kind of replaces US 2.
Okay.
Occasionally we'll have a senior who takes US 1, US 2, and then takes AP.
Okay, great.
Spanish language and culture typically is seniors. The College Board reported last year that 60% of the kids who take the Spanish language and culture, there's Spanish language and culture and there's a Spanish literature
Okay.
for AP. We teach to the language and culture, but 60% of the kids who take that test report speaking Spanish at home or as a first language. So of the 80,000 kids who took the test, you know, about 60% of them report having Spanish in their
In their home
world. Outside of the class.
Yeah.
Further, there's kids who go through a K-12 model, and they take the same exam as our kids who really do an exploratory year in 7th grade where they get a 12-week
Sure.
glimpse into each language, and then 8th grade is when we start. So we have an 8 through 12 model, and you know they go up against all those
Yeah.
other kids. Typically, it's all seniors, though next year we do have a student who will be a junior that will be doing it. She came in, she's just at a higher place and ready for a challenge. So we've done it once before, about 8 or 9 years ago, and the student was very successful that did it. And so we're going to give it a shot and see how she does.
Great. That's great.
That is great.
Thank you.
And AP Calculus is typically for seniors, although I have had 2 juniors take it in the past, and you have to pass, with B+ or better pre-calculus in the junior year. So, there are actually 2 calculus exams because of our school year, and the way our schedule runs. Our students take AB, but there's also a BC exam for people who run, like, let's say 90-minute blocks all year and things like that.
Wow, great.
You got everybody's nails, you're gonna do this.
Smiling people's nails.
AP Government is a senior course.
A senior
So,
course.
yeah.
Okay, great.
But again, we're a small school, so, if there was a circumstance where, a kid needed a different kind of, accommodation and needed to take it in a different grade level, we always consider that. We gave Ryan Bahar an office, it was a room.
That's right, he has his own space, that's right. Is it ever the case that somebody who wants to take an AP class can't take one?
We really try to strongly stress that, this is a graduate level course and that a teacher recommendation really ought to be carefully considered. We try to show students whether or not they're up for a particular course via the summer work, via placement tests sometimes. I think the biggest concern is having a student who is perhaps overplaced doing a tremendous amount of work. It's not for the faint of heart. And then receiving a grade that is not reflective of effort, but reflective of performance, and it's pretty demoralizing.
Yeah.
So I think we try really hard to make sure that there's a right fit, but it's, I'm running a government course, so, we're about,
Right.
inclusion.
Everyone has the right to fail. I mean,
exactly.
that was a
So-
mantra that we used to have teaching in college, like everyone has a right to fail.
Right. So I do think we try to make sure that there's the right fit, that there's a right match, that there's an awareness of, I hold about 3 meetings before I run the course. And I have a calendar and I lay out the calendar. And then, these are the kind of, you're gonna be going through units where there's 4 different types of testing. You're gonna be doing, the following kind of work over the following kind of, weeks. You've got vacation assignments, you're gonna be taking it with you to Disney. We try to make sure that there's a right fit.
But, yeah, because I think that, sometimes when I read the College Board stuff, they talk about they want to have everybody have the chance to take an AP course that wants to take an AP course. But yet there is the reality of, so I think what I'm hearing you say is that, well, we don't say they can't, we're just saying we make sure the expectations are clear so they get to make the decision
Yeah,
that
an
they
informed
think is
decision.
best for them. That's different than, no, you're not gonna cut it,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's important, because, sometimes people think, oh, it's just for the most elite kids. And I can tell you, when I look at student transcripts, when I'm doing superintendent's award, they're top kids, but they don't necessarily, some don't have as many APs as other kids, because they just don't wanna manage the workload. It is a lot.
It is a lot, especially if they maintain
It's a big commitment
sports
for
and
the-
they work,
for the
and it is
student.
a lot.
College applications.
Yeah,
Going on.
yeah, it's a lot for them to do
Their
that.
eyes need to be wide open.
But you even have, like, at your school, you have what do you call it, a waiver process, right?
Yep.
So if a student is not recommended necessarily for a course, but wants to take it, and their parents want to have them take it, my understanding is the school, certainly allows that, and then, it makes arrangements if they can't handle it, but, I think the data that Peter had collected that I had looked at a while ago, there was a high number of kids, that are waived in that do well, and I think a lot of that has to probably do with motivation, right? If I wanna do something and I wanna do it bad enough, I'm gonna do what it's gonna take to do well.
Right.
So I like it that we have the ability to, to challenge, students, who think they maybe it's a little above them, but they're willing to work hard to, and I'm sure some of your AP students fall into that category.
I have friends who teach at other schools. I'm not gonna name drop any of the schools, but
Yeah.
I do just wanna say that, here at Georgetown, it's a requirement if they take the AP course that they take the
They
AP
take the
exam.
test, I know.
And that's not a requirement, at some schools.
Right.
Some schools, the teachers will recommend when they get to a certain point, you should take the test. I think you'll score
well.
3, 4, or 5, or, but, hear everybody, if they take the course, they take the test.
So
Yeah,
that's
we
interesting. So at
do
other
require that.
schools, you could take the course and you could get credit for taking Spanish or biology, but you wouldn't get AP credit.
You wouldn't get the college credit.
Well, and some of the colleges don't even accept the credit. I mean,
Well,
they
yeah.
let you skip the entry course
Yeah.
or something there,
Right.
but they don't necessarily, you know, let you not take.
You
It's
don't-
just,
you
it
don't miss
varies
the
from college to college. But I think the one thing that I noticed on the AP scores that I thought was interesting is 77 students took the test and 33 got a 5.
I know, that's what I thought
So,
too.
so that I think was, I know. We were teasing Chris one year because.
Is it all
he had
Chris's students?
All of Chris's
Yeah.
students. All Chris's students get
Oh
5s.
my
He's
God.
he's not the only one who gets 5s, but all of his students got it.
Wow.
And one year, one student got a 4. Remember this, Chris? And we were teasing him, like, Chris, wait, you're slacking. You know, what are you doing? You know, you're missing out here.
Wow.
My question, how many, it was 77 tests were taken. How many actual students is that? Is there any sense of what that, I'm just curious how deep it goes,
I
if
got the
it's.
percentage of how many, we have a third of our, roughly, a little less than a third of our students take an AP test.
Okay.
But I didn't necessarily get the breakdown from the 77.
Okay.
I think half of them were Ryan Bahar.
Okay.
Oh, you're talking about how many actual
How many individual students, because they'll
Yeah,
take
yeah.
one or
Because some
two
are
or
taking
three.
multiple
Yeah.
tests. Yeah, that's a very good point.
most kids
take 2.
Yeah. I
By
mean,
their
because you're
senior
looking
year, at
junior and
least.
senior year.
Well, we don't necessarily have the same students
Right.
either.
Mhm.
Right, because a math
It's
mind might
very
not be,
different
yeah.
bunch of students sometimes.
I was curious about the same
Yeah.
thing, I just don't have that number.
I also think another really important thing is, as Carol was saying, is that it's all about motivation. And if you have a student that really loves the material, then that's going to help to motivate them too.
Absolutely.
And they may struggle along the way, but I know for me with biology, and we're doing a lot of really involved labs. I have required labs to do in addition to the material that I need to teach also, and they're pretty high technology labs, DNA fingerprinting, bacterial transformation, and so they have to be ready to do all that work also, and to be very independent, and we've got inquiry-based labs as well as your kind of normal setup labs, so they have to be able to think outside the box, and so a lot of times during the year, students really develop that, and if you can see that spark in their eye that they love the material so much, then it's going to be worth spending a couple of hours a night if they have to when they're studying that material. And I know for me, it's always so wonderful to see so many students decide, oh, I'm going to major in this. Ryan's majoring in neuroscience. It's really wonderful when they come back and they say, to all of us, you've really prepared me well. I'm a great writer. I'm doing so well in my calculus. I skipped over 3 calculus classes. Or I'm getting. So many nursing students come back and tell me. We're getting A's on all our biology tests that other students are barely passing. And so that's great because you know that the love of the material, and they may not have even gotten the 5 on the exam, but they got so much out of it that they loved it so much that it's carrying them into their undergraduate years, and that happens, across the board for all the subject matters. So that's really, I think, an added perk for all of us in terms of knowing that.
Well, I have to say, I never ever thought I would feel this, but I just had a moment of thinking, God, I want to go take those courses. I never thought I'd want to go back to high school.
And do they still do DBQs on the, until you do the, I was a history guy also, and when you do a DBQ every week, you don't want to take it.
What's a DBQ?
It's a document-based question.
Oh, okay.
That's just
Haven't heard that one before.
enough to hate yourself for an entire school year.
Well,
Thank
well,
you.
thank you all for making the time to
I
come
know,
out
thanks for
tonight.
coming
All
out
of
with
you
your
came,
kids,
and
they
it's
were
so
so
appreciated.
good. But I'm
So-
sorry that it took a little while, but we
Yeah,
appreciate
this
you
was
coming
this
out.
was a treat for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to your children, Rick. They were awesome. And Mia, same to you. Thank you. Yes, Chris, now you're still here. Still on the
I'm going to
hook.
put a time limit
At
on
least-
myself. We have a night game going on right now, and the lights are going to turn off in half an hour. So
You have a lot of hats. You wear a lot of hats.
He does wear a lot of hats. All right.
Well, this is really important, this G logo.
Yeah, I know. We didn't forget about the G, right, Chris? But am I remembering this right? I hope I told them that the Royal Lancer,
Has
it's
this
the
G on
little
it.
teeny G that's on the
Yeah,
on the
and
shield.
they were able to
They were
extrapolate it,
able
which is
to
great.
get it and make it bigger.
Yeah, I think it's great.
I'm surprised about this G, to tell you the truth. I don't know, I didn't.
You didn't like the G?
not that I didn't like it, I don't associate this, maybe because I'm not seeing the blue and white. But when I looked at this G, I'm like, oh, I
haven't
don't
seen
know.
it? You haven't
With all the shirts that I've seen, and my kids have all the basketball, you know, whatever. This didn't come out to me as Georgetown.
And that's-
Was it the G, Barbie, or is it the stuff around
Well, like
it?
I don't know if it's because of the color, because I don't have that blue.
Yeah,
But
we
I
don't
think
have the
it was
original.
just the font of it just didn't.
Oh, it's the font.
Come
Okay,
across
that's what
to
I
me
was-
as Georgetown.
But the font kind
I
of
was
goes
more
with
like-
the logo of the school. You know, the lance, the royal.
Yeah, it
I mean,
it may,
it kinda
it may,
fits in
but
with-
I'm
and
just
that's where it
saying,
came
I
from,
didn't
right?
look at this and see Georgetown.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm not, I
It's the new
100%
face of
believe this is where you got it from the Lancer.
that's-
I'm just saying, I was thinking more like block, letter G and.
What other Gs do we have,
Oh, we have a lot
Chris?
of G's.
Like,
So our football helmets have the Green Bay Packers G on it.
yeah, that's
Um,
not the right
I've seen the
G.
Georgetown Hoyas G floating around. We have a block G that's sort of like a varsity letter that shows up on things. The school store G is pretty consistent. I don't see them wearing it right now, but they actually do have a pretty consistent G that's, I don't know the font, but it's a font. So there's a lot, that's kind of where this came from. There's a question on the turf field, they want to paint it, they want to paint the
wanna do
center
a G,
logo.
yeah. Great.
And there's a question of, well, we don't really have an official G. We've never
Right.
adopted one. Every
Yeah.
group that has something going on kind of picks their own G from whatever the stock is. And I thought it'd be a nice idea to have an official one.
I agree.
And along the lines, lacrosse was doing a fundraiser where this was plastered on something. I said, where did that come from? And they said, the shield. I said, oh, that makes a lot of sense that it actually sort of is our G already. It's just we never really noticed it before.
I never noticed it, yeah.
Vanessa, how do you like this G?
Yeah, it'll definitely look good on the field and add something to it.
And it's different than any other G that
Yeah.
you'd see, which is kind of cool that it is
That's
unique.
true. Yeah, unique. I like it. I think it looks.
Peter?
I don't know, I'm not looking for unique, I'm looking for familiarity. Like, I don't
I think
see
that's
this.
his point, there's
But-
not a,
I
so.
mean, no, but there, well,
Or
but
do you
there
love,
are.
do,
There-
do,
there-
do you love this G, Chris? I mean, because the other
I have a
question.
tattoo of.
It would be really awkward if we said no right now.
The other question is, if we could make a series of the Gs we have, you know, maybe we could take a look
Vote
at
on
all of them, and then maybe this one would emerge.
So the problem would be you'd have to change the logo, the Royal Lancer. I think if we adopted a different G, I wouldn't want that G on the Royal Lancer.
Well, you know what my thought is as I look at this now, as somebody who likes to play with fonts. That Lancer, I'm thinking is kind of small. The G is reduced.
It's tiny,
And
yeah.
it's quite possible that this was at one point a fancier G, I'm thinking a serif. Do you know what that is? Like a little swirl on it somewhere. That had to be that somebody modified in order for it to fit a tiny space and be recognizable as a G. Because if you took something that was too fancy and you made it that small, you might lose. So I don't know if that's something we could just look to see. Is there a G that maybe is, again, that's a little bit of investigation. Google Fonts has a lovely collection and you could just go through and look at all the G's and see if you find some, that's just a thought. But I think it's perfectly, and in fact, I would argue away from more decoration for that use in the field. I think simplicity is nice. And
So Chris, this background came from
Shield.
the shield, okay. Because the other question is, what if you just use the G?
You could, yeah. So the shield is has
So it
that
maybe-
color would be blue. So
Right,
the shield.
the G would
yeah.
be blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the G would be blue and.
No, the shield.
The
So
shield
the-
would be
the
blue.
background.
Oh,
Yeah, and the
what,
G would
what if
be
you didn't
white.
want it on the shield? Let's just.
Would
for
it
sake
stand
of-
alone?
Just the G,
Yeah, I don't know.
blue?
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it not superimposed on the
'Cause
shield.
I'm wondering if that's part of what Barbie's reacting to, is it's
If it was just alone, it doesn't look as recognizable as a G. I mean, I like it in the context of the shield, just in terms of being consistent with the logo, the lance or whatever he's called.
He's a Lancer.
He's a lancer.
I mean, I'm fine either way, you know.
I mean, I like consistency.
I think
and
initially
history
we were
and-
thinking, I was thinking it was gonna be just a G. like a, you know, a G in
Right,
the
I know
middle.
at the turf meeting,
And
that's
then
what
the
we talked
turf
about.
was gonna be around it, but, I mean, I don't know if there's a consensus that this is the G, but if there's not a consensus this is G, then maybe we still need to look for the G. You know, I know we're
Use all
anxious to get
6
it
of
done now.
them.
Huh?
We could use all 6 of them.
Exactly.
How long does it last on there? A whole season?
That I don't know. I think it's a year.
I think they said the paint, I mean, if you wanted to put it on permanently,
Yeah,
then
well, that
that's
would have
a
to be
di- I don't
sewn
think
in,
we,
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think we costed that out.
No.
But if it was, you know, sort of a simple G, that's probably possible, but this, we were gonna initially just, talk to, I guess it was a guy from St. John's Prep or somebody that does it, and we were just gonna have, and then they said it was for one season, generally.
Because one of the things that I talked with Liz Marchetti, the school store
Yeah.
person, and I said, you know, if we adopt this, we might have to do some rebranding, and that's you know that's something big to think about too. That
Yeah, I do agree, because then that should be
That has to be your
what we
G.
have on all of our, you know, things that
But
recognize
like you said, we
our
have a lot of
school.
Gs.
Yeah.
We do
So
have a lot of Gs.
do you think we should look at some alternatives?
I mean, I can we can vote on this and see how see.
Is there a time crunch? I mean, I know we want to get in the field.
mean,
and everything.
I think they'd
Is
like
there
to
a-
paint it on the
They'd
fields,
like to
but
paint it. But here's a thought, if we, I mean, it shouldn't take us that long, but if it got painted on for football, you know, for the start of football season, when we dedicate the field to Jim Collmore, and, you know, maybe that's a possibility. I mean, I know they'd like it sooner than that, but if we aren't confident, this is exactly, cause once you paint it, you're not gonna change the G
Right.
every year, right? You kinda gotta,
template. Yeah. I think the big thing is if we didn't adopt this, we'd have to look at what's on the shield.
yeah, if we wanted to connect it just to the shields, I think that was the discussion before, right? So is it the G on the shield because we have the Lancer, or is it, we have, that's our logo, the Lancer, but the G can be whatever G we want.
Yeah.
So I don't know, what's the pleasure?
Personally, I'd like to hold off.
Well, okay, so what would
And
you
then we
like to, to move the conversation
Yeah.
forward, what would you like to see as potential alternatives? I guess that's the question.
Well, some other Gs that we have that
Some
on
of the
about
Gs that
on
we
our.
have.
Do you think it would be a good idea to have the student body involved?
I think it would be
I think
great
it
to
would
have
be
the
great.
kids involved.
Is there time?
I was
Well,
gonna,
not for this year. I don't think you're going to turn
but
it around.
for the fall you
yeah.
could. That's why I guess I'm suggesting that.
Sure. I
Cast
mean, that's
the
what I'm saying.
web
Like,
net
are we in a
little
hurry
wider.
to get this done, or if we're in a hurry, then I think I would like to make a motion that we adopt this. If there's time, and I don't,
I mean,
think
it's such a big project.
faculty
I
have
don't.
time.
We shouldn't be hurrying into anything with it.
Well, I
Really.
think the
I mean,
kids
it's-
is an awesome idea.
I think
would
bringing
really
I think the
like-
kid.
Cause then they own it,
Yeah.
then they own it, you know?
but who spearheads that? Who takes
Chris.
charge of that? I mean, as we've already acknowledged, Chris wears a lot of
He does.
hats and has.
And they all have
Mr.
different
Murphy, do
Gs.
you-
That's the problem.
Yeah,
Mr. Murphy
not
wants
to
to-
convolute the process, but in order to see it better in context, you may want to consider existing logos on, say, college fields. I'm sure if you go online, whether it's the Georgia Bulldogs or other schools that have Gs, sometimes actually seeing existing Gs
Yeah.
might give you a different perspective.
Yeah, that's a good idea too.
So,
That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
So
can
Chris,
take a look
how
at that.
if you wanted to consider using the kids, what thoughts would we have on that? Like, how could we do that?
I mean, you could have a contest.
Yeah, voting.
You could have multiple Gs and have them vote on their favorite one.
Yeah.
I would open it up
Do
to
you think that the
creative
kids would
folk.
like to do that, Vanessa?
I think definitely it like kind of makes it like hit home and be like their field.
They
and
own it,
Ownership,
right?
yeah.
Is there a graphic design class?
There is.
And-
There is, yeah.
And what about those kids?
Yeah.
One
I
of the
don't know.
things they might be able to do is they might be able to get a picture of the field and then.
Pose it.
Superimposed it.
Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be
so we could
interesting.
see- That would be.
But probably we would get some Gs and have the student council.
Yeah, we could make a survey out of student council.
out
Like,
there.
do that.
And could
I'd like
could
to see
you?
that.
I mean, if people wanted to submit a G though for consideration, could you potentially consider that?
Sure, we
Yeah.
can do anything.
Like,
I have to tell you,
Wow.
I'm very
Did you hear that?
Yes.
We can do anything.
surprised that, I guess I didn't know that they're painting it on and it's not permanent.
I think initially when we were talking about the turf field, we
was
were looking at the
sewing it in.
Lancer. And we got, I think that was like an $18,000
to
at
sew it in,
least,
though.
to sew it in, cause it's a pretty complicated. Again, we never got a, G wasn't on our mind, so we never got, any quotes on something like that. I would say that the G,
cost to paint it?
a lot
Permanent-
less.
Permanent painter, you're saying just to paint it
Like the
each
1 year
season, yeah,
version.
we never got a cost, I mean, I know we.
No,
talked
they were
to-
gonna ask the gentleman from St. John, John was going to, or Mark, I think, had the contact.
If we're gonna do this every year, you're gonna
That's
be
about
up
you're
there.
gonna
Well,
pay
I
for
don't think so, Peter. The first year, we were going to do it because it was prohibitively expensive to put the Lancer on the field permanently with the budget that we had to work with. So if this was something that we all had this, consensus around the G, we would get a price from the company to see what it would cost to sew it in permanently. And then we would know whether we have the budget to sew it in permanently or we need to paint it on. Because once you have a template, it's a matter of using the template, right? So I think we're just not there yet. We just don't have, because we don't have the design. We don't know what we're costing.
Is there an issue if it's an existing G, if it's the lacrosse G or the football G or the softball G, that it's not the G? That's a weird sentence to, now that I play it in my head, but like, is that any risk of like
Alienating one.
alienating one over the other?
Well, those
I don't-
will all be thrown on the pot.
I think we'd want consistency.
Yeah, no, I'm
across the
saying
board.
like, but if
I don't
if
think there's a firm tradition that
They're
the
all
football
like
G is the Green Bay Packers G. I think it just happened
it
to
just
look
happened to
nice.
be that way.
And again, if there was an official G, then now
Then
when
everybody
we
becomes that
order
G.
new things, we do the official G.
Probably
If we
save
were
money,
to
too.
look at alternative
Save
Gs,
money, you're
how
right,
many
we-
Gs would we wanna look at, like 5, 10, as many as
Well, Chris
people
has to
would
figure
come
out how
up
many
with?
Gs he has already.
Well, I like the idea of a contest.
Yeah.
And this could be one of the pieces,
Yeah, it certainly
it
should
already
go on there.
exists.
Yeah.
Or someone could tweak it a little bit if they wanted
Yeah.
to. But yeah, I like the idea of a contest, and maybe if you get 10 submissions, you narrow it down. If you
Mm-hmm.
get 2 submissions, you don't.
But I like the idea that Mike just said too, to go online and
Yeah.
check out the fields
Yes.
of like the
Well, a lot of
other G.
universities have a sports letter and then the university logo, so it doesn't have to be the same all-purpose
Yeah.
G. There's a often it's like a script fancy G and then a block G for the sports or something like that. So
So would you help with that, Chris?
Yeah, I'll talk to
maybe
Martha Dodge, she'll
yeah,
probably do
talk to
that.
Martha maybe, and her kids could maybe help with that. Okay,
And we can do some internet research.
thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Appreciate
No,
that.
thank you, Chris, for
Okay,
hanging out.
Yes.
Lights are still on.
Thank you again, Chris. Good. So I guess Donna's coming up next, right?
Yes.
Yep, your turn, Donna. Thank you, Donna, for waiting.
Alright, so we thought it would be nice if, we sort of told you about some of the good work that the teachers in the special education department are working on right now. So every spring, one of the requirements we have is to formulate the needs for extended school year. So the first question might say, well, what does that mean? What is extended school year? So under the IDEA law, Individuals with Disabilities Act, we're required to provide FAPE for all students, which sometimes includes summer services for some students. There's some implementing regulations that really guide the process for us. So with all of the students that are on IEPs, we have a very small number, maybe about 18% of our students that really require services that extend into the summer to ensure that they have access to a free and appropriate public education. Not all students will qualify because they can make sufficient progress during the course of the year in the programs that they have, or sometimes if they're staying after school. So there's some very specific needs for those students. It's determined very individually for each student in the IEP team, which consists of general education teacher or teachers, the special education teachers, the related service providers, which are speech and language therapist, maybe an occupational therapist, sitting at the table with the parents, making a determination, you know, for each individual student on each specific goal as to whether this is a requirement. One of the pieces that's important is substantial regression, you know, over an extended period of time. So when students are gaining skills in curriculum, social, emotional concepts, over the course of a week's vacation, we have April vacation coming up, for example, or over the course of the summer, will they regress substantially more than your typical student? Will it take a lot more for that student to be taught and regain what they lost during the course of a week or a summer? And how do we make that determination? With data, of course. So what we do is we collect very specific data on those targeted areas prior to the vacation, and then take that data again.
Wow.
And make a determination as to, you know, has the student substantially lost some type of information that they need or a skill, and we move on from there. So some students who do qualify, they don't necessarily qualify in all areas. For example, you know, maybe it's only writing that they really have substantial regression in those particular areas, so we'll provide them that single services. For other students, particularly our students that are on the autism spectrum, it's the socialization, social pieces, communication skills with same age peers. That's the area that they really need to have some extended opportunities, particularly over the summertime, because that's a long time for those students to be away from that type of instruction. What is it? It's not, do students need to master all their goals on their IEPs each year? No, not necessarily, and they don't need extended school year for that either. Again, it's very specific. What it's not also is summer school. It's not credit recovery. So it's not those types of things. When most people hear about summer school as far as academics, they're considering, oh, well, I can make up this class, or I can go in and I can sort of get ahead of my same age peers, and that's not the intention. It's maintaining skills. Where was that student in June based on progress reports and teacher data? We want to make sure when September comes, they're at about that same spot. So we're not looking to increase, we're looking to maintain those skills.
But even regular ed students sometimes, over the course of the summer, if they don't read or don't, you know, there's some, I don't call it regression, but they don't necessarily, you know, start exactly where they left
Right.
off.
Right.
But I think what Donna's saying is these are children who have significant issues that it would make it very
More.
difficult for them to maintain over the
Right.
summer without continuation of the program.
More than your typical student.
That's right.
Much more, and even, you know, more than
Substantial.
most students that
Substantial.
have individual education plans. You know, it's quite significant. So for example, you know, I've talked a lot about the types of programming we have. We have our greenhouse program, which is a substantially separate program that we have for, you know, those small children that have, you know, significant needs, cognitively, physically, emotionally, all of those different areas. All of those children always qualify for extended summer services, because we know without providing them those services of, you know, physical therapy, occupational therapy, they are going to regress substantially. Your typical student who needs some assistance in maybe an academic area or a social area, they won't lose a significant amount over the summer any more than, you know, as Carol said, your typical student would lose over the course of the summer. You know, if you don't have the kids reading over the summer, they're going to, you know, regress a little bit, and it's very
Executive function
normal.
disorder, that's, you know, I'm sure it's quite easy over the course of a summer for students.
But it is one of the-
They don't get practice.
But it
with it.
is one
Right,
of the, it is
exactly.
one of the more often questioned and sometimes the most contentious discussions, because, you know, sometimes parents of students who struggle, you know, they really worry. It's more of a worry than it is really something that's documented.
Do you mean that parents would like
They-
to have
they
their
would-
students
right,
in the
because
extended
they
year,
feel
but
like,
the
you
students
know,
don't qualify
right.
based on, I
Right.
see.
Well, or what happens is, you know, this team will decide that the regression that they might experience isn't gonna be significant enough. And maybe the parents don't agree with that, cause their worry is, you know, I know my child, and I know if they, you know, aren't getting these continual services, that they're gonna struggle more than they would have to if when they start in September. So it is a discussion that is difficult sometimes at the spring meetings because, you know, people don't always understand. It's not that the school district doesn't want to give your child help. It's just that, you know, we're following basically the regulations. And we encourage parents over the summer to continue to do things with their children and give suggestions of that. But, you know, many people feel usually there are specific students, like Donna's saying, in programs that we just automatically would give it. It's more the children, I think, with learning disabilities that you see this with, you know, that just want to have some tutorials over the summer to ensure that their child's going to be able to start the year in a better place.
For the ones that do qualify, is it mandatory or is it really strongly
No,
encouraged?
It's really strongly encouraged.
We can't force you to come.
Right, that's
So
what-
no, we can't, we wish we could force some people to come, but we can't force people to come. So basically, again, we sit around the table as a team and we make a determination as to what, if anything, the child will need over the summer. And we put that offer on the table for the parent. And sometimes the parents will accept it, and sometimes the parents will only accept part of what we're offering, or maybe they'll show up the first week and then the child never returns. And sometimes they outright say, I'm not sending my child, it's summertime and they need a break. And they don't send their child to school. You know, and we collect the data in September and we find out, oh, you know, we really wish they
But
did
then
come,
we pick
but,
them up and keep moving, you know?
you know, like anything in public education, it's a parent's right.
Yes. Uh-oh, what happened there?
Oh, well.
Just touch the
um,
screen there.
No, I think it's the funky wire.
That's all right, we can still talk. I think it's the wire, it just sort of went poof.
So, do we have anything for those parents who, okay, you don't qualify for extended year, but you would like your child in school? Do we have a summer school program that they can, that's not
It's not
extended
academic,
year?
though.
Oh, it's just the camps that we offer?
We offer the
and-
camps.
So,
But we usually encourage, I mean, I think we usually encourage strategies like, you know, here are some books that would be appropriate, you know, we certainly encourage that kind of thing. Many parents, you know, kids become part of play groups in the summer. We encourage for those kids that really need the social skills.
so you provide something that says, here's what we think
Ideas
would
and
be a good-
strategies, right, but not necessarily provide the direct service.
Right, and for some, oh, it's back.
Okay.
So for some parents, what we'll do in that case is we'll put together some packets that they can take with them over the summer, and they can utilize that to help maintain their child's skills. For those parents that worry, but they don't necessarily truly need those types of services over the summer. So what kind of services, you know, we talked about all of the different spectrum of services that we offer in Georgetown for our students. So specifically, we narrow it down again to those very specific needs that students have. And one of the areas that related service areas, and that includes speech and language for students who need that, occupational therapy, their fine motor, physical therapy, or some sort of combination of those services. You know, some students might come in for just a half an hour a week for some speech and language services, and that's what the team decided they needed, 30 minutes a week. Because typically what it isn't is exactly what the grid says for the school year. It's usually less than what it says. Again, we're maintaining their skills. The early intervention transition group, those are the students who are going to turn 3 years old during this course of the summer. We want to bring those students in from the early intervention so that they can become acclimated and there's no break in services for those students, so that when September comes, they roll right into our preschool programs. We have at all levels social, pragmatic, and academic needs. And within that group, you're going to find students who have social, emotional, and behavioral component. They may have some pragmatic language difficulties. They also may need some reading, writing, or math, and they may need discrete trial teaching. Some, all, it depends. So it's very systematic for those students. We also have the instructional services, which is specifically for students. Some of your students who have a specific learning disability might need mathematics over the summer, reading or writing. You know, if you think about some kids who have a Wilson reading program or a LIPS program, which is very specific, segmented programs within reading instruction, those types of students. So they might come in for 1, 2, or 3 of those areas. And then we have our life skills group, and that tends to be our students who have some, there are older students who might have some significant cognitive impairments, and they need to continue in their VOC programs where they're doing some maybe on-the-job training, they're doing some adult living skills, they're practicing their cooking and shopping and, you know, anything that they might need when they leave us at 22 years old. In putting the staff together, we separately hire staff for the summer. We hope as many Georgetown employees as possible will come because, first of all, they know our kids. They're comfortable with our students, and our students, most importantly, are comfortable with them, so they can walk right into the room and not miss a beat and feel comfortable with the instructors. Last year, we only had 2 people that were not Georgetown staff already, which was fabulous. So for the most part, we do tend to bring our own teachers, paraprofessionals, and therapists back in. So what they do at the end of the summer is they collect all this data, put together a report of what happened over the summer, which would include attendance, participation on the students' part, where they left off in their reading, writing, math skills, and provide that information for parents and for the teachers for September. So again, they can sort of kickstart where they left off. So that's the summer program for our students.
And this year, it's all at Pearlie.
It's all at Pearlie. It's going
Pearlie's
to be
gonna be one
incredibly
busy place
challenging.
this summer.
Wow, it is gonna be busy.
Yeah, it's gonna be very
Mhm.
busy.
Mm-hmm.
But all the programs will be there.
So when do you know, like, how many kids you're gonna have placed in this program?
We start looking at collecting the data beginning about January, February.
Okay.
So we start kind of having that conversation. And I've asked my staff I've given them specific grids of information relative to who the students are, and I've asked them to make sure that I have that by May 1st at the latest, so that I can specifically put those programs together, and then I know exactly what I need for staff.
Right.
So they have grids that include the type of information as, you know, what is their reading instruction if they have it. So they give us their Fontes and Pinnell levels. They give us their Wilson reading level wherever they are. The same thing with math. Are they on a behavior plan? Do they have some social skill troubles? So they provide all of that documentation for us, including parent information if there's a sibling in the program. We gather all of that, and then we develop what are the small groups going to be for instruction. Who do we have in the different, like, Pearlie Pals program, the preschool program, where we like to bring in some typical peers models for them. So we need to know exactly how many of those students we can accept based on how many of our own students we're going to have as well. So that's an ongoing process. And again, it's, you know, team generated. So in some cases, somebody may not have their annual meeting till May. And we'll find out afterwards, and, you know, if you add just a few students at that point, it's not a big deal.
Mhm.
You know, I expect to, by mid-May, to have all of the staff hired and most of the groups ready, so we can hit the ground running. Because we know there's a short window between the end of school and when summer school's gonna start, so.
Right, right, and we've had to figure out what rooms Donna's gonna
Mhm.
use, you know, to help with the cleaning of the whole thing, cause some of the classrooms stuff is getting moved, so, yeah, it's
We have
It's like a
transportation we have to put in place for some students, so anything that happens during the regular school year happens over the summer. It's just in a, smaller fashion.
Yeah.
Next summer's gonna be a lot easier, isn't it?
I think it will be. It's going to be very noisy and
Space-wise,
early this
just
summer.
space-wise. It
Yes.
sounds like you're very, very well
Does
organized and your plans are
every-
excellent.
Does every district do their own? Is there an opportunity for
Shared resources.
shared resources? That's a very nice way to.
There is an opportunity for that. We do try, if we have some very specific needs or small incident populations, in my special ed directors collaborative that I attend, we do try and work with each other, not only just for the ESY programs, but for the school year programs too.
It really is about a critical mass, right? So if we only had like 1 or 2 kids, we wouldn't go,
if we could find a local district that
Right,
had
that's
one,
why-
yeah,
yeah,
that we do
that's what I
that.
was asking.
But we actually have enough to run our.
I was
run
gonna,
our
is
programs.
there an opportunity to attract others?
Yes.
I guess that's really what I was asking, to attract others, to make the critical mass, or to,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, and we actively do that. Specifically right now, what I'm looking at is for one of our greenhouse program. I've sent out the flyer information. Many of you have probably received the flyer about the program to some of our local districts to see if they have students that would benefit from coming to our program. And, they could pay us a tuition and your student would come and attend with our students.
Okay.
Always thinking about that. That's a good.
Revenue.
You knew what I was asking.
Revenue, yes, indeed. All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, financial report. Turf field,
I have a warrant here.
Invoice?
Yep. I have 4 invoices.
4.
4 invoices. The first one is probably the last electrical bill that will be charged to the project because now the field is being operated, so I think we'll be responsible for the electric. But that was during the testing of it.
Mhm.
2 of the invoices, or 1 invoice is from, there's 2 invoices for SSI Direct. One is for the padding around the goalpost. That's the smaller invoice, $772. And then the largest invoice is the mound, the pitcher's mound
Yeah,
is on that.
we knew
And
that, wow, but I'm so surprised a pitcher's mound
Cost
cost
that
that
much,
much,
I know.
21,000.
well, no, it was 15,000,
Yeah,
and then there must have been associated things with it.
but even
And then the freight was a lot of money.
to get it here, okay.
Yeah, $1,130 to get it here.
And then
It's
the
a big thing.
Medco,
Those are the signs that we put up around the field.
okay.
So we're coming to the end of this project.
Yes, well, to that
To the end of
construction side
of the warrant side,
Yeah.
where we're paying for things.
Well, and Quirk still has to come back and,
Yep.
and do the things that, go over the punch list again and do the things that needed to be completed, but couldn't because the weather was getting funky.
And that can be done, so, I mean, people are utilizing it now, so it's not a big deal that they're utilizing it without that
Right.
100+. Okay, can I do these, all together or no?
You can do them all together, yes.
Okay. Okay, so the chair will entertain a motion to approve, bill to Town of Georgetown Municipal Light invoice number 6-1251 in the amount of $509.95. Along with SSI Direct invoice number 51886 in the amount of $772. SSI Direct invoice 52363 in the amount of $20,990. And Medco Inc. invoice 93272056661 in the amount of $1,385.29 for a total of $23,657.24 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
I need 3 signatures.
Oh,
Yep. Okay.
This is all the same. This was the only difference. And if they're
Seven, eight.
Can you send that,
850. Yep.
please?
If they're ready, I
Thank you.
have the number that they need to revote if they're ready.
Okay, do we now wanna talk about, the FY16 budget? Can you pass it around, please? Thank you. Okay, this is on our, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this is not a discussion any of us wants to have, but unfortunately, we have to. I appreciate all the creative, things that you have come up with, Lauren, I appreciate all the time, I know it's not an easy task for the administration, and for the Budget and Finance Subcommittee. I appreciate all the time that you've put in to this budget season. It seems like it's never ending, and I know the meetings have been probably long and arduous. So why don't we talk about the different things that we're gonna,
Well, I just wanted to make sure you got a copy. I went to the department head meeting, and so this is the town budget that's being proposed. So that gave us the information as to, after the FinCom meeting and after all the deliberations that went on, in that group, exactly what our budget was going to need to be. It was actually, I don't think, quite as much as we thought we were going to have to reduce, but it was certainly, I think what was about $25,000-$30,000 different. But then we also have the matter of the kindergarten grant that was $56,000 that was not in Governor Baker's budget. We already had a portion of those expenses in the budget. It wasn't 100% paid for by the grant, because the grant kept getting reduced, if you remember. But nevertheless, it added to the ultimate cut, right? So, we did have a meeting of the Budget and Finance Subcommittee, threw some ideas around. And then I had a meeting with the administrative team, and, we had some ideas as well, and we shared the work that was done at the subcommittee level, and came up with a list of reductions. We were also trying to keep in mind, if we could, the town's request that, new positions that, wouldn't be added, largely because of the healthcare impact. And so, I think the committee tried really hard to respect that, although in a couple of cases, because we anticipate that there are people leaving the district, we know we have some resignations of some teachers who've said they are not coming back. Our expectation is that there are health care packages that through that process are left on the table. So not everybody that we hire takes the health insurance. In fact, I think we found out 50% of the employees take Georgetown's healthcare package. So it's not a given that everybody you hire, but we did want to be sensitive to the town's request where we could be. There were a couple of positions in particular that we thought were going to be very, very difficult to not add, because we're opening the Pembroke School. Everybody's concerned about the investment the community's making in a brand new facility, and in particular, Mike Anderson has been very concerned about the reality of trying to clean a 98,000 square foot building with a day custodian and 2 night custodians. That's what we have now, really, because we have a night custodian and a day custodian, but we have the extra part-time guy at night when the dust became a concern. And we're increasing the size of the building substantially. So the recommendations of both of the groups that we worked with were to leave the custodian in the budget. And that forced us to go find money
to cover that.
in the budget. Because, the bottom line was the bottom line. The other strategy that we've used that we aren't happy about is, because it's something we've always talked about, is to take some of the expenses that we believe are essential from that list and move them to revolving accounts. It's probably not a problem for next year, but it's, the danger is in subsequent years, if you have salaries on revolving accounts, unless you continue to generate revenue at a certain level, and raises occur, for the staff, if you think you have a little room there, that room gets, and there is a tipping point. There is a point at which you can't ask people to pay more for a fee. So, it's something we're juggling, but, it's definitely a strategy we're uncomfortable with, but the idea of having to cut something that we thought was essential, was difficult too. The other position was the secretary. We can't imagine opening a elementary school with, 770 kids and their families with one secretary, as talented as Diane Collins is. I'm not sure she'd wanna work for us very long if that were the case, and, but, you know, you can't just rely on volunteers for the amount of work that would go into that. So, because there's no, you know, there's no room in the budget for that, we are recommending, that we take it out of school choice. Again, you see the revolving account, you know that that's not healthy. But in order to make that work, and it's not a school choice discussion tonight, but in order to make that work, we feel we'd have to add five school choice slots. Because you need
Beyond what we would be ordinarily offering, or that
well,
we
we
just
haven't
need-
discussed how
we
many
haven't
we would
discussed,
offer.
so we would just need to make sure.
We may not offer any next year, you know, maybe we would have offered more, but the minimum we have to offer
Is
in
5.
order to feel like we can do what we're recommending here would be 5.
And we have, our history is of filling all the school choice slots that we make available.
You know, we fill most. I mean, sometimes if we have like second grade or third grade slots, you know, sometimes people aren't interested in those because you're kind of leaving a child in the middle, the
Sure.
child's leaving in the middle. But where we see, you know, 8th grade into 9th grade, you know, 5th grade into 6th grade, kindergarten has been very popular.
Okay.
When we've been able to open slots, but that's not to say when we've had 1st or 2nd grade that we haven't come
Sure.
close to filling them, but it's not 100%.
And
Same
I-
thing with 10th and 11th graders. You know, we just, you know, you often don't get.
Is our kindergarten enrollment for next year?
Kindergarten enrollment for this next year is 80 students so far.
Okay.
You know, Margaret and the kindergarten teachers, you know that trend usually does continue. You do get more people over the course of the summer, but how many? You know, 10, 15?
Yeah.
You know, we could get none, we could get 10 or 15. So right now with 5 teachers, the class sizes would be very reasonable.
Right.
But the question is, you know, if
So
more
5
come in.
kindergarten slots, so it could be, it seems feasible right now.
Maybe. Yeah, we just don't know. We just don't know. But, Peter has said that he believes he'd have slots at 9th grade.
At
So,
ninth grade,
so
great.
I don't think we're in a problem there. But for the budgetary discussion, in order to move that secretary to choice, we would have to add 5 slots to be able to have, what we need there.
Okay.
So when I did put a, you know, draft list in your orange notes.
Yep.
One of them is a transfer. We had, because we were trying to take things out of our revolving accounts that were recurring and move them to the budget as it made sense. We're changing our mind on, one part of, one of our salaries. So that's not included in the budget, so that's actually a reduction. Kindergarten paraprofessionals is a concern. That's a painful cut. Largely because, you know, and I mean, Margaret met with the kindergarten teachers, I talked to them today. They make, you know, they have some very valid, you know, concerns. Just, you know, I mean, they've been able to do some pretty amazing things with the extra support, there's no doubt. And also those aides, assistants have, helped cover other things in the school, some lunches, you know, when somebody's out. I mean, there's a utility to them
Sure.
that, isn't just unique to individual teachers. You know, I mean, they're concerned, they're worried. You know, one of the things that I know for me was weighing heavily was this assessment that I've talked to you about before, that gold assessment it's very, very intensive. It's not to say it's bad, it's just very intensive. And without people to help, it would be difficult for the teachers to maintain that and to do it. And they only had to do a few of the standards this year, right, Mark? 2, and there's how many though? 9. And when I tell you within those 9 standards, there's substandards and indicators, I wouldn't be kidding you, the manual is this thick. So one of the things, when the information came out from the state that they may not be funding the grant, they sent something out that said, so we're not really gonna hold you, you know, we're not gonna require you
to
to
do
do
this
the
gold
goals,
testing.
because
Okay.
we know how difficult that would be. And then they cut the money. So it is our choice to do that and not. And one of the things when we talked to the kindergarten teachers is we said, we're gonna back off on that, because.
Doesn't that just make you question, like, okay, you're having these standards, you're telling us that these standards are what you want, you know, they wanna see happen, yet they're quick to pull it off when money is the issue.
Well, they know they
always
can't
issue,
expect the teachers to do it, and like I said, 2 out of 9. Can you imagine if?
Yeah, if it was,
Barbie, they're not the standards, it's an assessment tool. So it's asking teachers, within 9 elements. And then within those elements, you're looking at documentation of a student's progress. So it's not all paper and pencil, some is through observation. And they can be standards related, but it's a great deal of observational, anecdotal, you know.
Notes and
oh,
entry and.
yeah, it sounds like it's a huge take on.
A great deal of time.
I mean, teachers are constantly watching, observing, and assessing students,
Mhm.
but this requires them to do it in a formal way and actually take
to
notes
record,
and
yeah.
write it out,
Yeah.
and, you know, chart it and all of that. So, I mean, I think, you know, and again, so, you know, numbers, it's hard with numbers, right? Because what's too big, right? Given the needs of the kids, sometimes a class of 17 is a really tough class, you know, sometimes a class of, and I remember I had classes of 30 and, you know, there was no issue. Sometimes I had classes of 15 and, you know, there were issues. So, you know, you can't always tell, but right now the numbers, if nothing changed, would be 16 kids in a class. If 10 more comes in, then it's 18 kids.
Sure.
So some would argue that 18 kids is a really reasonable number. Others would say anything above 15 with kids that age really should have additional support in the class. So, you know, again, we kept going into the budget saying, well,
So
what
how
will we
many-
do?
To get to that number 31.8, how many school choice students is that?
Well, well, we get $5,000 a student.
Yeah.
6.
and a half.
It's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah. Okay.
So in talking with the kindergarten teachers today, I mean, the good news is some districts are saying, well, the money went away, so the aides are going away. And so there, no kindergarten teachers are getting any support. That wasn't the tact we took because we do understand and value and see the benefit. But, you know, I know it wouldn't be designated people and we'd have to figure out how that all worked and who got scheduled where. You know, and if there were additional money from the state to come in, I mean, I told the kindergarten teachers, I mean, it's not a done deal, you know, at the state level that that cut's gonna stand. There has been a lot of pressure put on legislators. You know, if they were to restore, you know, grant funds even partially, obviously we would want to, you know, go right back and, yeah, we would use the money for that, for sure. But,
Well, I'm really, really glad we're not thinking about cutting all of them.
Oh,
I
no.
can't imagine
No.
that. I just.
no, we couldn't either, and that's why we didn't.
And the aides that we use, the paraprofessionals, they're certified in some way? Or not?
They're trained.
They're trained.
You know, we have a number of paraprofessionals that are trained, you know, to work with our some
Trained once they're hired by the district or trained before they're hired? We train them?
We train them. I mean, there are teachers, I would say there are aides that come to us sometimes having worked in like a Landmark or a Melmark or places where they've done training, but we still do our
Right.
own training and so that they would have maybe a specialized training. Maybe Donna wants to have somebody do read naturally. She might train, you know, someone to do that or like the discrete trial training, the students who need to have data taken.
And I'm just curious to know, is there a way of filling in with volunteers?
Well, for what,
For those
what
two
part?
paraprofessionals, for the two kindergarten paraprofessionals that we're reducing, is there some way? Again, I'm thinking that we're having
Yeah.
this senior center.
Mhm.
And we've talked about using the seniors and having the opportunity with the pre-K kids to maybe be involved. And if that just doesn't become a place where we look for people who are interested in working with children and might be able to give a day of their time, and would it be useful for us to recruit? Would it be useful?
Well, we
to a
we would
recruitment
always
effort?
welcome volunteers. The challenge with volunteers is it's hard for them to make a, you know, the kind of substantial
commitment.
commitment.
Yeah.
But but and you know, many parents today are working. It is an
Right.
interesting time right now.
Right.
I know when I first started working in Georgetown, there were a lot of parents who the moms were home.
Right.
There were not a lot of people were not working.
I mean,
you know?
when my daughter was in first grade, the competition just to read in the library once a
Yeah.
week was
Yes.
fierce.
Yes.
I think I only got to
Yes.
do it twice during the whole first grade
Yes,
years
right.
because every parent
Yeah.
wanted to read.
I
It
don't
was
know
only
that-
once a week.
I don't know that we would think it's a replacement for the para, but I think we would certainly welcome the opportunity
Another
to get
adult in the classroom.
additional help in
Yeah.
the classroom. You know, just for some clerical things, you know.
Sure.
But so that's a cut we looked at. The middle school team leaders, Peter would like to do something different next year in terms of having the assistant principal working collaboratively with the teaching teams. The clerk typist at Pembroke I already spoke a little bit about that. That would be funded out of, I guess we said we'd fund that out of a revolving account.
Did we say which?
I thought we did say choice, but.
That was the one for
That-
choice.
It is
Yeah.
supposed to be choice.
Okay.
All right,
I think that changed.
okay, that's fine.
So,
But it's not coming out of the budget, that's the
Yeah.
purpose of the discussion. And then I just wrote a little note there.
what's my name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Pam, you had something about that?
Well, no, I was just going on to the nurse's assistant.
Okay, we haven't
just
got
to-
there yet.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So, you know, the issue of the clerk typist, I mean, we also talked about, at one point, having to use the library assistant, but we're not sure, now if the whole thing can come out of choice, we wouldn't need to do that. Right, we would just,
Right,
yeah,
right.
I
Yeah,
think
we talked
that,
about
we talked about
reducing
that.
it to like part-time.
Right,
Part-time
right.
too, right. Yeah, and then when we thought about, when we reduced it to part-time, it's the same money, right, so it just made sense to do it
Reducing the
this.
library tech? you're saying?
No,
No, we're talking about the
no,
clerk
the
typist
clerk
stuff.
typist.
Okay.
So you're not reducing it, you're keeping it at a full-time position and just
Full-time
taking it
school
from,
year, yeah.
from,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
We'll take it from school choice.
right.
so.
Okay, so now the nurse's assistant. This again is, I think, something that's concerning to us. And I have talked to a couple of the nurses. I did meet with Mary Beth Doherty, and you know, just because I just had to get an idea, like how could, you know, what's the loss, what's the danger here, and obviously. You know, the nurses are concerned about it. It's 770 students, and you know, a lot of the children today have asthmatic issues and allergy issues, and you know, Pembroke, we have a child on a feeding tube. So you know, there's a lot of more sophisticated kind of, you know, challenges medically with.
Versus how many students do we have now at Pembroke?
We have about
409?
we have 490 or something like that.
409?
It used to.
Or is it
490.
You think
490?
less?
Yes.
Okay, like 450.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely, you know.
It's a lot
gone
less.
down, right. So it is a lot less.
For
And
one
so
nurse.
the question is, you know, is there a way to, because we had to make tough choices, you know, is there a way for the other nurses? I want to meet with all the nurses together and say, are there any strategies that we could use to support, you know, the nurse at Pembroke? And then, you know, perhaps we can take a look at one of the library assistants and see if maybe, she's not a nurse by any means, but is there any way, you know, making phone calls to parents, you know, anything that could be done. But this may be something that, if we don't have to revisit it this year, this may be something that we have to revisit in the future, because I think we're gonna find that that's gonna be a tough job. You know, we might be able to look, depending on how the sub budget is, maybe we look at the sub and we hire a couple of subs, you know, sub 2 days a week, right? And do that, you know, throughout the year, a nurse's sub, you know, so, I mean, there's a few strategies that we can kind of work on there, but for the purposes of this discussion, it's not in the budget.
But when you say reduce the nurse's assistant, you mean there would not be a
There
nurse's
would
assistant?
not be a nurse's
It would be-
assistant. Yes, that's right. That would be reducing it from the budget.
Okay, so that is different from the original minutes.
That just sounds very dangerous to me.
That is different than from the original minutes that I got from the budget and finance, because I thought it was 2 days. They were changing it to having one there for 2
We
days.
said possibly, I've got the notes right
Yeah,
here.
it was
Medical
possible.
assistant changed to LPN possibly 1 to 2 days per week
Are there,
and funded out of the revolving account.
are there
The problem is
Okay,
the-
but that's what so you're saying,
No.
We're saying
that was a
there's no-
possibility, you're saying
Are-
no, it's no possibility.
are there state or federal guidelines as to how many
No,
nurses one should
Well,
have?
lots of districts share nurses between schools.
Schools. the high school nurse has 820 kids
Kids
and
with
she's
one,
alone.
yeah.
There's no doubt, little ones are different, so they're,
Right.
but even
Yeah.
if there was somebody there
You're
that could help with like little triage, like, oh, here's a nice pack for your head.
Right.
That kind of thing. And then the nurse could evaluate whether or not it's something that, but maybe helping to troubleshoot, or like I said, we might have to look at the sub-budget and sort of say, gee, even one day a week, or maybe the nurses can say, look, I'll, 1/2 hour, 1.5 a day, I can go over on Friday, or I just don't know what that can look like, but we're still talking about it, but we didn't
So we're
have,
keeping the nurse at Pearlie, right?
we are. But again, the problem has to do with the needs of the children, because I think initially we thought, oh, well, that'd be great, 2 or 3 days a week, we could, we could share. And again, we have to look at the needs of the children, if that's possible, that's what I'm saying, I would have to talk to the nurses to figure out, is there a way that we can cover for each other, like,
Right,
so,
right.
so if Louise had to go over to work with Kathy for a half day, is there a way Mary Beth could you know what I
Sure.
mean, we just don't know, and they'll tell me what they think can be
Okay.
done. The fact is that we're not assuming that something isn't gonna need to be done.
Right.
It just competes with other things in the budget, right?
Feels painful.
It is painful. The special education teacher at Pearlie is not a choice. That is actually not really a new position. That's an expansion of a already benefited position. The caseloads at Pearlie and Pembroke require that addition. So that does need to be funded. We weren't able to leave it in the budget, so we moved it to the revolving account. Then we started to say, okay, what other, like, we're getting there. So right now, if you recall, in the Pearlie revolving account, we weren't able to put the full, salary of the custodian. So what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, since we're planning to generate new revenue from the, program that we're adding there, that we're gonna take $10,000 of what was the budget share and move that $10,000 into the revolving account, preschool revolving account. And then,
That to me is so scary when it's
Sure
not
is.
like proven.
what do you
Like,
mean, what do you mean?
Well,
Barbara?
I'm just afraid that,
We're cashing a check before we.
right, that we don't know the profit.
From a
that this-
preschool?
That well, I'm more talking like the,
We're
Well,
just,
yeah.
we're just using the preschool.
okay,
just
so
using
you
the
asked
preschool.
about the additional, okay. I was
No, this
thinking
isn't
more
about the
the,
additional. This is
Faculty daycare?
the faculty
Yeah, well,
daycare,
I'm still getting
'cause that's-
emails from people, are you doing it, are you doing it? Cause I think there's interest in it, but, I said, we're sort of on hold till we can get a little bit more information. But we're only looking at the preschool, the extra preschool, right, for this discussion.
And preschool's enrolled, is that correct at this point?
Margaret's,
So we know it's enrolled.
filling it, people are, well, are you
Well,
asking
for
if it's
that extra
full?
class, you're saying,
Are you asking
right?
if it's full?
Yeah.
No, I think there's still slots open.
Still have spaces.
yeah, see that is, that,
But in that case, we did talk if we still had spaces. We're just making sure that the Georgetown people get the first priority.
First.
and
So the question is, if we have some additional slots and there are people that would like a high-quality preschool option, we would fill it with people.
It's early, it is still, it's
Of
hard to
course.
see the empty spots, but we always start filling up.
I just wonder if we have a sense of what the revenue for us will be with what we have.
With the new program?
With the students we have enrolled currently.
We
without-
projected it out in the, I don't know what meeting, but we did project it out based on it being full.
Yes.
And I can't remember, it was an extra, I can't remember.
That's okay. No, I just wondered, had we
But
done
But it was
that
enough to
projected-
fund the teacher and the aide,
Okay.
at
Right.
least, and still have additional
Right.
monies.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
As long as it's full.
Yeah. And then we did make the decision to keep the custodian in the budget. We did cut the 0.5 maintenance. We did keep that on the cut list, knowing again that that's a painful situation, but we're hopeful, just from you know, offhanded conversations that we've had. I mean, we haven't had an official conversation, I guess I should say. That maybe the town would look at that again at the fall town meeting because they're not putting in the budget a certain amount of state aid that may come.
Sure.
That budget will be decided by June 30th. So it could very well be that when June 30th comes, you know,
Then we could
they'll
ask
be,
for some
and
money.
then they may consider. I think there's, from what I'm understanding, there definitely is concern on the part of both the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen that, you know, the maintenance position is needed there, even if it's part-time. So I think that is understood. It's just like they aren't willing to commit to that right now because they don't really know how that's gonna come out.
Okay, so where would that go?
I'm sorry, Barbie,
Where
what?
would the maintenance position go?
Goes away.
It goes away.
I know it goes away, but if it didn't go away,
Pembroke.
so, okay, so at least at least you kept the custodian.
Yeah, the
Okay.
custodian is critical. We absolutely, you know, from the minute that building opens, it needs to be clean.
Right.
And that drove a lot of, keeping the custodian drove a lot of the other,
Yeah, sure.
making sure that building works.
Yeah.
Kind of
Right.
drove a lot of the other decisions.
Right.
And then we got down to like $8,505. And we decided to, reduce the textbook account, but from the budget, but then fund it from school choice would be our recommendation.
So that 12K that's in the original notes, it's really an 8505.
Cause we didn't have exact salaries when we were making the list of the paras, so as she adjusted all that.
So
that
just
was
taking it off the budget, but putting it
That's
to
right,
school choice.
Cause that's a one-time, that would be a one-time expense, that's what you should be doing with school choice.
And you had said that historically we don't spend the full budget on the textbook line, if I remember.
Well, we haven't,
correctly.
I know,
You
I
haven't.
know.
Historically, I know it
Yeah,
can
I know
be
Peter's
different,
got some
obviously, but-
replacement needs, and I think Julie has some, you know, would like to have some funding
Right.
for a middle school math textbook.
But the thought that was more of a paper cut than a actual physical textbook cut, because we have come in under historically, so that's not a.
There should
Correct
still
me if I'm
be
wrong.
money, there
Yeah.
still should be, Peter had said that he wouldn't wanna take anything out of his middle school account, because they've already got needs, but
Right.
that taking something out of the high school, he thought maybe he could
Yeah.
manage, so.
And we already have the new vocabulary books, so that's
I
good.
guess so, yes. I know you care about those a lot.
I do, that's
know you
very
do.
important.
And that would get us to the
Big improvement.
grand total of,
The new budget for the school committee to approve would be 13,803,254. That's the number the town gave us.
So we hit their number.
we did hit their number,
We
but
started with
again,
them.
but again, we didn't just cut it all. There were some things we just couldn't, I mean, we're opening a new building, and I think we were very, I would have loved to add a full secretary and we looked at a clerk typist because we were trying to, again, hit that number. We investigated, looking at moving a secretary from the middle high school, but, at the end of the day, it really, in order for the school to work, it was decided that it just didn't make sense. It sounded like it would work on paper, but the logistics of it and the reality that it's not a junior, senior high school, it is a middle school, high school, and, the time we didn't have support, upstairs, and then you gotta have enough support downstairs, and you got the guide, it got complicated, if we had to make cuts in the future, but for this purpose, it seemed to make sense to, fund it out of the revolving account, and then realize that in another year, if the budget gets tighter, we may have no choice but to look at it differently.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll say it, I'm gonna beat a dead horse.
Which is?
The revolving accounts scare me, because since I've been on the committee, we've said it every year.
I know.
This isn't what we wanna do, this isn't what we wanna do, and then it continues to happen, and the thing that concerns me is that there doesn't look like anything's changing, like if I could see that maybe the following year, that wouldn't happen, but nothing's changing.
No, I've been saying it for 8 years. I mean, we always, because we're increasing our revenue. I've always said the revolving accounts are unhealthy. But, you know, if we didn't have things on the revolving accounts, like I said, we have a $13,800,000 budget from the town, but we have a $15 million operation that we run. Because the only way we can afford the other things is through grants and revolving accounts.
Which is
Right, and
our
the grants
revenue.
Which is, yeah.
The revenue generating streams
Right.
that we've put into place.
Right.
Which is primarily the preschool.
Primarily the preschool,
school.
the after-school
after-school
program,
program is kind of the real.
school
School
choice.
The after-school program is vibrant, which I think is great.
Right, and that's the only reason that we've been able to,
Right.
to put a couple of things in it from Pembroke.
And one of the things that we talked about is with the changes in the schools, like there's a bit of a question about the after-school program,
Right.
kind of in its new evolution.
Mhm.
I think we expect it to be as successful, but
We don't know.
we don't know yet.
Mhm.
We don't know.
I think our conversation 2 or 3 days ago, whatever it was, I think the focus was on the custodian and on maintaining good teacher, like focusing on education. How can we minimally affect teachers teaching students in classrooms? And that drove a lot of these decisions. I agree that the revolving accounts is scary, and I think we did a lot of one-time stuff this year that we're gonna have to figure out even more. It's gonna be even more difficult next year to figure out. But
But in those meeting minutes, I do wanna recognize the fact that a budget task force was identified as something that we would be interested in. I
Yeah.
do think that, because it just seems like all of a sudden, once we get to that point, we talk about it, but I think it should be an ongoing discussion. I know, you know, a lot goes into it, but it just seems like we have this time frame, and I mean, do you agree with the time
Well,
frame?
I think we talked about, I mean, I think that really the group that we have is sort of like a task force. I think what's missing is like multi-year budgeting, you know, and I don't mean just in the schools. I mean in the town. I think that's the task force that needs to happen, is a task force at the town level that really looks at what's the plan, what's the financial plan for this town in the long run? You know, how's that all gonna work? I'm not
too scary to look at it, cause I know when I asked Joan, okay, so tell me in 2 years what this looks like, she has the numbers for me, and.
For
they're-
salaries
they're-
anyway, that we can project out.
But, well, and
But
that's our
that's our
primary,
biggest but.
but the fact that she's able to do that, and it just doesn't look promising.
It doesn't look sustainable.
And
It's essentially, the system we have
Mhm.
is not a sustainable system.
well, that's even if we were to assume the 2.5%, which we essentially know that we're not getting, even at the 2%, it's a lot better, but it's not sustainable. At the 1.7 or whatever we are this year, it's flat out not
Well,
sustainable.
what did we say earlier, it was
225,000.
no, but it was 2.7 would have been what we needed.
Well, you
as
asked
an
for
increase?
2.61.
We asked for
Right,
2.61.
but-
2.46.
We're talking
Earlier when I-
about, yeah, the increase.
Earlier when I said, what
Yeah.
would we have needed in order to,
This, for the salary increases, it was it was,
I thought you said 2.75, but I thought that was
the following.
projecting, right,
Yeah,
I thought it was
following year.
projecting the following year. I mean, this year, you know, we needed over 300,000 in new money in order to not have to cut, right, to just maintain level services. And basically, what we got was 225.
Plus we had
Plus
to
we had
add
the
new
kindergarten.
positions
Right.
of the custodian,
Right,
secretary and stuff.
Right, so, I mean,
They're just
the
going the
issue
opposite
of
direction.
sustainability is,
It's,
right, we, you know, we would have to have budgets of 2.75 or higher in order to be able to maintain. And that's not giving people gigantic raises, and, you know, special ed costs are hard, as we know, to control. You know, thank goodness for circuit breaker, but, you know, circuit breaker, who knows, I mean, they went from 75% funding reimbursement to 66 this year. So, you know, that's a loss for us of money we were actually counting on being able to apply to the expenses. So I think that what is desperately needed is the long-range look at the town's finances and the
Right.
picture, and certainly in-house for us to use our resources here to look at multi-year, you
And
know,
we do that to a
budgeting.
large extent, but it's not gonna be terribly effective until we understand better from the town
Yeah.
what the long-range view or plan is.
And we do
you know.
understand the town's, I
And
mean,
it's
no
hard.
one's not understanding the town's plight, but long-term, without a plan,
Right.
the property tax, you know, the citizens are gonna get buried. They're already feeling the pinch, but it's only gonna get worse. And, you know, I mean, if this year budgets overall grew to less than 1.5% in the town, and there are reductions, that just gets worse.
Yeah.
And if you have 10.9% health insurance costs, which hurt
Increases.
everybody, you know, you can't maintain a 1.5% overall increase. Cause to fund that, everybody else has to be underfunded. So it's a challenge.
I think the idea behind it was in the minutes, a task force.
Yeah.
It sounds like a big fancy word for it, but it's to identify streams of revenue essentially without hitting taxpayers again. It would be easy to say, all right, we need to raise the
Yeah.
activities fee, but
Yep.
whether you take it out of the
Implement one,
late.
Because we used to have one, we don't anymore.
But that's a
Right.
tax to the parent.
But yeah,
Well,
at the end of the
and
day.
that's what I had mentioned, it seemed like a lot of those things that we were saying we could do, and I know,
I know what you're talking about.
you know,
Yeah,
just seem
the
to fall
revenues.
back on the parents, they
Right.
already over.
Yeah, I think Lorene had done some research and gone onto some sites, and she had said, "Oh, you know, the people are doing a lot of revenue generation." But you're right;
Yeah.
it's hitting the same people. Or after the people have increased their taxes and put money into beautiful renovations of schools, and then you say to them, "If you want to use our facility, it's going to cost you." You know, I mean, I have fought that battle since I've been here. People have said, "You're crazy. You should just charge everybody to use the buildings." I said, "It doesn't feel right to me." You know,
No, but we will be able to charge other towns to
Well,
use
we-
our turf field.
well, that's right. Well, we do have a plan
Eventually,
for that.
once
We
we
did
have
do
enough
research and we know what
fields in the
places
town
charge for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not easy.
Okay, so.
But your point about the revolving accounts part of me is completely supported. We
Yeah, I
all
know.
are in agreement.
Okay, so,
The town even resorted to that this year. In their discussions, they actually took some positions, moved them to a revolving account. I think that's usually the case. You know, everybody's just looking for, how do you keep the level of service? And do it with whatever available funds you have.
Mhm.
okay, so we have to approve the new budget number.
Right, you have to approve the new budget.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the FY 16 budget in the amount of $13,803,254. No sense? Is there ever any sense?
It wound up perfectly even. It was amazing.
As presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? No. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Do you wanna can we go to the calendar? Just so we can.
Yeah, we can go to the calendar to say that I'm not ready to.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
But, yeah, I'm just thinking in case you have any questions for any of the administrators, I think we'll go home. So.
Which calendar, Carol?
So it was on your
The school
table?
year or the 16 calendar? The last day of
What's
school
the answer
calendar?
to that?
Well, so we have to approve the new
Last day of
last
school.
day of
Last day of
school.
school.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the new, we need
Yeah, that's
them
what I'm
for
saying.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll look at the new.
Okay, so on your table was the new.
Yep.
All right, so, okay, so teachers would, you know, if September, basically what we're proposing there is, you know, teachers come back on the Monday. You already voted to start, before Labor Day. Friday would be off for families and staff to enjoy, you know, the long Labor Day weekend. The only, change here is we were adding, a half day on, the 25th, a half day in service, or PD day. The thinking behind that day, was that, we're gonna have a lot of new technology, and so Wes is needing some technology time
Sure.
to update, and there's some new programs and things that are happening at all the schools in terms of software, and so we wanted to use that as a training day for technology. So we added a half day there. October 9th, we always traditionally have one of our PD days in October because it's not too far into the school year. But it's not too late in the school year where what you do there isn't, and we'll do a little presentation for you coming up on, what's gonna happen on the PD day, so you'll know what the focus for PD is next year. But, and traditionally, people seem to like it when you can do it and make it a little bit of a long weekend for the family, cause that butts up against Columbus Day. So they would have a full day in service on the 9th, and then Columbus Day on the 12th. Okay, then you go to November, which is always traditionally a kind of a funky month anyway. You got the Veterans Day holiday on the 11th. And then in that month, on the 17th, you'll notice the asterisk, middle and high school have an early release that day, and then they have the parent conferences in the evening, and they're from 6 to 8. Peter figures that out based on the marking period and when report cards go home and all of that, so that's kinda how come cause I said, maybe could we put it on the 10th, and then, it only breaks up, it doesn't break up another week, but it affects the fact that the report cards go home at a time that doesn't make sense for, so.
Now, they do the early release because the teachers are there from 6 to 8?
They're there during the afternoon,
So
for
the-
afternoon conferences, and then they stay
Oh,
at
okay,
night.
so there are afternoon conferences.
Yes, it's an early release, so the teachers can do conferences in the afternoon and then also in the evening. And let's be clear, one afternoon and one evening is not sufficient to give everybody that wants a conference. So I wanna acknowledge the fact that the teachers do give a lot of additional time to meet with parents, because we know that we couldn't give enough days and have it not impact the students. And then, of course, there's, the Thanksgiving holiday.
Is the 25th a half day? It's just not on the side.
Yes, it is, because it's before Thanksgiving, it's
Okay.
always traditionally a half day. It's not, we don't have PD or anything that
Right.
day.
Oh, yeah.
In December, you see on the 3rd, the elementary, same thing, teachers do conferences in the afternoon and the evening, on that date, and then there's the holiday, winter holiday break. I would just point out that we did, make the 23rd a half day as opposed to a full day. It counts as a day, just makes sense, Christmas Eve is the next day, so, we made that an early release. Okay, so then everybody comes back, in January on the 4th. And then, obviously we're trying to get out at a reasonable time. We clearly heard that from the survey, that people, maybe they weren't 100% sure they wanted to come back before Labor Day on a regular basis, but they sure knew they wanted to be out earlier in June if we could.
That's the
And-
one area of consensus.
Yes, it was. So, we know we need a full day off on March 1st because it's the presidential primary. These are not ideal dates for us, by the way. We wouldn't pick these dates for PD days. But in order to work with the town on election day, especially when it's a presidential primary, they anticipate a bigger,
Sure.
voter turnout. We're putting our PD days on the election days. So normally in January on the 15th, we would have done a full day PD day and then had Martin Luther King. But in order to
Sure.
have only 4.
And the point is, I thought that one of the features of the new Pembroke, I don't know if we know where voting's gonna take place, it's in the gym, I'm assuming, but we don't know.
Maybe the gym or the caf. Yeah, the gym probably, because it doesn't matter, I don't know, don't know that.
But I thought there were those locking doors.
There are.
Between the gym and the school, so it would mean we wouldn't have, the school wouldn't have use of the gym on those election days, But we had talked about it being a safety issue if the students were in school.
Yeah, it's both of those things. It's an
but we have
impact to
that.
the school program,
Yeah.
but it's also a safety issue. So we don't know the answer to that, but it may be that, you know, there's a side door that comes right, if it's in the
Right.
gym, there's a side door that comes right into
I
the
think
gym.
you're questioning why the day off.
Yeah, why, if it's not convenient for us to have our professional development day on the day of the election, wasn't the design of the new school intended to make the school have a multi-use area that could be accessed by the public and that would still keep the students, it wouldn't allow the public access to the students. So you have the door between the gym and the school locked, so you still have all your,
They'll be at recess, they'll.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
that,
That's
I think
true.
that
This is like.
I
the
think that that was more the
president's
case
primary. It's so
of
big.
after-school activities, so for example, if something were, right now, if something's happening in the Pembroke gym or the Pembroke library, kids are everywhere, they're all up and down the
Right,
halls, you can't lock those hallways. So, part of the design was that if you were having, you know, an activity in the gym, you literally can cordon off
Right,
the rest of the
right.
building, because there is a locking door before you go into the caf.
right,
So people could come in that door, the bathrooms are right there,
right.
and then the gym is right there. So I think that the design around that concern was more, you know, can you segregate it off,
Sure.
you know, before and after and before school hours. I think the town has, you know, has always historically, you know, been fine with us sharing space, but
Sure.
the concern has been the security. Like, if you
Yeah.
had people just come in that door, who's gonna sign them in?
Yep, yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't know.
no, it's.
I don't know the answer,
I
but,
know,
but
I
I'm
get
just
it.
pointing out that we wanted to have, 3 PD days and one day that's before school, before when they come in before school. And so in order to do that, we're working with March 1st
Yeah.
and May 9th.
Yeah.
So that makes the 15th an early release.
Yep.
Okay, so that's a half day. Then you go to February, and it's just the break, February break, there's nothing else there in that month. March, there's your second elementary parent conference on the 10th. Oh, and Peter's also, going to have that be a high school evening only conference. The,
Which night?
the,
10th?
March tenth?
yes.
Okay.
Peter, in the, okay, so you've gone to now having your middle and high school conference in the same night, right? Remember before there were 2 nights, but now there's just one, right?
I know, I'm opposed to that, but,
You are?
yeah.
If you
I
have a kid in
I
middle
have
school
middle
and
and
high
high school
school,
kids.
How do you go to
So
all your
I
conferences?
like had to, you know, run up to the 3rd floor, run down, you know, and then I'm like, okay, which kid am I here for?
I
It's
know,
just hard.
it is a challenge, but you know what was a
I'd
challenge?
rather have 2 nights.
But
to
you
do
know
it.
what was the challenge the other way was that there would be some parents, because we share staff, right? So there would be some parents who might come to their night and they follow their child's schedule, but they might have 3 free blocks because the teachers by their contract come one or the other if they share staff. So that was a big challenge. You know,
Yeah,
lots of
and-
parents were really concerned about that.
Yeah, and,
So we
and
can-
I've had that happen too, where my middle school had a high school
Yeah.
teacher, so she wasn't there at the conference, but I don't know, that's,
I know, it's
to me,
not-
it's like
not-
really
Well, we can have
it's an evening, to meet your
Parents,
students'
yeah.
parents, and I do have
Okay.
you know, a
Well-
strong feeling about that I think that they should be there.
Well, we can definitely chat about that, you know, and have another conversation. And then on the 25th, that's Good Friday. So that's a half day for Good Friday. April 8th.
Okay, so Good Friday.
Sorry, yep.
You know, I'm not saying that I want Good Friday off. I'm just recognizing the fact that it seemed like pretty much everybody had Good Friday off around us. I don't know of many. I mean, I happened to go to the mall that day and I'm like, why is it so crowded here? And I saw all these people and I'm like, okay, Linfield, Masco, all these people, I'm like, wow, you have the whole day off? They're like, yeah,
I don't
you
think,
had a
that
half day.
wasn't nice. I
Yeah,
thought-
there was a lot.
I was like, why do we have a half day today? It's Good Friday. So many other schools are in school. I had a reverse.
Oh, yeah, no,
quite
all
a
the
reverse
districts
experience.
around us.
No, I
could
could get, I didn't have the day off at all. I mean, no half day. It was a full day.
Yeah.
That, and we had that discussion because it
Yeah,
it said
but-
Good Friday in the calendar. It's like, well,
interesting
why are you
conversation.
saying
The
it?
majority of
But
the,
you have a
of the
regular school
public
day.
schools surrounding us have the day off.
Well, I can't answer it right now, but I
Yeah.
could get you more information about that, because I know the Superintendent's Association did a survey on that.
Oh, okay.
And they did a survey on school calendars in general, cause I think I shared it with you, because there
That's-
was discussion about, starting how many districts start before
Yes.
Labor Day, after
Yeah.
Labor Day. It was in that paper, like.
Yeah, well, I know it was on like Fox News that in one district, they were saying they were gonna have the kids go back, have a day on Good Friday, and there were parents, complaining that,
Oh, yeah, it's hard to, that's,
so I would like to just get an idea of,
I'll see if I can get some more
the
information on
majority
that.
of, the districts.
Okay.
Friday.
So we did, in April, we are suggesting putting a half-day, PD day, April 16th. And then the vacation week. And then in May, there's the full day because of the election. And then Memorial Day.
Did you say April 16th?
April 8th. I'm sorry, did I say
might have
that?
said
Yeah,
the
the 16th, okay, so April.
Sorry.
Okay, that's
April
all right,
8th.
yep.
Sorry. Sorry to confuse you. And then May was the election day, and then obviously Memorial Day. And then the projected, graduation seems late that, Peter worked it out that the last day for the seniors is June 1st. And then there's this, 12 days or something, Peter, between the
regularly scheduled last day of school.
Yeah. And so that puts graduation at Saturday, June 11th, and then the last projected day for students would be the 17th.
That's a much better date.
It is a much better date. And then the 24th if there's, but not to beat a dead horse, but when you start before Labor Day, that's what happens,
Mhm.
right? If you start after, you generally get into that following week, and then if you have snow,
You don't
it
wanna
is
do
what it
that.
is. But anyway, I don't wanna have that debate, before or after school, Labor Day. But I just want everybody to know, it's the 17th. If there's no snow days, it's perfect. It ends on a Friday and everybody's happy. And then, we have the details in the.
Right.
Attached. So that was our thinking about the calendar for, believe it or not, 15-16.
Looks good to me.
It's unbelievable. So, it doesn't require a vote tonight. Obviously, if people feel ready to vote, obviously whatever your pleasure is. I know
Can
we
I
are.
hold off on the vote?
Yeah, so what's today? So the next meeting is,
Next meeting's after vacation.
yeah, so like the 20, oh wait, it's right on our paper here, I'm sure.
The 23rd, 20,
The Tuesday?
It's a Tuesday, yeah.
it's the 28th.
Tuesday the
28th. So, it really would require a vote then, because people are already anxious about, I've been able to tell people we're starting before Labor Day, cause that's one of the things they've been, most anxious if they're making, but I think.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that if we
Yeah,
could just
we
do it
can-
on the 28th.
Okay, and if there's any additional information that anybody needs, please let us know, we'll do our best to get it for you.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, do we now want to approve the last day of school?
Sure.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion to approve the last day of school for the 2014-2015 school year as June 23rd, 2015, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Great. And then we had a Baker Adams timeline to take a look at. I think getting it out on April 13th, I think we just have one question question that we have to figure out in order to get it out on Monday. I think we have to, clarify that, community service form that we were talking about, because the ones that I got forwarded tonight were basically just the forms that the kids fill out. You know, when they perform,
Right.
you know, and, you know, if they perform 2 hours, 5 hours, whatever, they fill out that form. That, I don't think was the form that we were,
Looking at before.
right, because the
I
other
didn't-
form that we looked at before seemed to be like a total
Yeah,
of
it was a
everything.
Yeah,
compilation.
it was,
Right.
you wanted it broken out, right? Didn't you
No,
want?
no, we wanted the compilation.
We wanted the
just so that
compilation
they
that
would
the
be-
guidance office had.
Yeah.
Just so it was easier for us, because what I found, what I've found is when the students list their community service, I don't necessarily think what they're listing is what they're providing to, Mrs. Utter, because to me, there's a question in, what they list out.
Okay.
As it being community service, and we came across it one day, and
Yeah,
I
what
remember you
was-
came out and said, wow, what is this form, this looks,
It was in our packet for some
Simplistic,
reason.
right.
And we said, this looks perfect, this is
but
just.
I can't get a hand on that one, so I've gotten from both Mrs. Utter and Sandra Kelly, the same form, and that's basically just the kids' form that they
But that,
fill
was
out.
that the one, that's not the one you liked, though?
No, because that's an I mean, if kids
So
have,
who's in
if
guidance?
kids have 100 hours, we're gonna have all these forms.
Right, yeah, that's what we
Oh,
wanted.
you're
It's a
talking about the
compilation form.
individual.
The individual
Okay,
ones.
So where do you think you saw this form you liked?
It wasn't, it
We
was,
I think we saw it in one of the the applicants' packets.
no, it was something in a school committee packet that was.
Well,
for-
if it is, I mean, we have have copies of all the packets. We could look
I
at that.
don't think
but-
it was in an applicant
See, I
at all.
thought it was when we were
No.
just in a subcommittee meeting.
No, I think it was something that came to us and I said, where did this, I remember I looked at it and I said, where did this form come from? And somebody said, it's used in the guidance office. And I said,
Tally
we
them.
said, yeah, this is perfect for Baker Adams, we should,
Yeah.
that's how
So
I
maybe
remember
over
it,
The next
yeah.
day we can
Well,
figure
maybe
out
we
what
can,
that form
I don't know,
is.
maybe we can drop Paula at her. And she didn't know what we were talking about?
I can send her another, I'll send her an email, Laura, because
They both sent the same form.
I
Yeah, but
know,
that's
so maybe
not
I
the-
should be a little more, I can be a little more specific as to what I'm looking for.
If you know what form you're looking for.
I don't know, so I'm hoping the 13th could be accomplished, but I'm not sure. Because that was the one thing that we talked about,
Yeah.
making it a little, easier. But I like the amount of time between the applications being received and then the time that it takes
So,
for us to.
do you have a suggestion, Barbie, as to what the time should be?
No, I like it.
Oh, you
I'm
like the
saying,
13th?
No, I do
okay.
like it,
Okay.
well, I like the May 18th to the 29th, I think that's doable,
Mhm.
between us getting them, looking at them, and then meeting to make our selections, do you
Okay.
all think so?
Did we ever vote on what the prompt would be for the essay?
We're not changing the
We
prompt,
we voted not to
Okay.
change it.
we're gonna keep the prompt as it is.
All right.
Decide on the date for that Baker Adams meeting now.
Huh?
Do you want to decide on the date for that Baker Adams celebration now?
No,
You have two members who are not here to participate in that,
yeah,
Well,
because
to
of-
participate in that.
Lana won't be here.
Yeah,
I won't be,
You're right.
can you tell me when the meeting,
be somebody
when,
else,
what meeting
Anne
are we gonna
Lorraine,
have
and
the,
you want them all there.
new member?
The new-
So what's what is town meeting, what is, when
Town-
the voting day, is it
May
the
4th, I think it is.
Yeah.
May 4th?
It's usually the first,
The
May
town meeting is
11th.
May 4th, the vote is May 11th.
So,
Okay,
yeah.
May 11th,
okay.
so the next school committee meeting is the next day?
Yes, exactly. They'd have to
Because
get
we have a
sworn in and
Tuesday
they could,
meeting,
right.
wow,
So it could
okay.
be,
Are they
So
actually
May
gonna get sworn in
12th.
the next day?
you can. If-
So
if
I know.
that individual is
you
gonna
don't think
be,
so? It's not available, you mean, or is that,
Sometimes it takes longer to be sworn in than.
oh, well, then they wouldn't be
oh,
able to
really, I
until,
came
24
like right,
hours.
bye, Mike.
But once the vote has occurred and somebody's been elected, I'm no longer on the committee, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's, so, and the
So
election is
your
May
last
11th?
meeting
Yeah, May
then
11th.
would be, Alana's last meeting would be,
Next meeting.
Meeting.
next
The-
meeting.
the 28th.
Is it when it's
April 28th, yeah.
certified or how does that work? I don't even know. Is it
So
when
what?
the vote is certified? It's done because that wouldn't be the next day.
I thought it was when you got sworn in. I mean, you know, I thought it, once you're elected, well, how would it get certified? The
Well,
town-
it's the
town
the vote.
clerk.
Oh, when
The
total
vote. The
tally
vote
is
on May
done.
11th is not a certified
Right.
official
Right.
vote.
Right, so
It's
Jan would
a
have
week
to-
later or 2 weeks later or something.
Oh, yeah.
realize that.
I don't know.
We've always, because
We
I
can
went the
find that
next
out.
day.
Okay, that could be.
We'll ask Jan,
Okay.
we'll ask Jan.
And I
But
think
it-
it might be easier that it's no opposition.
Oh, yeah.
There's no opposition. Correct? So it would be easier.
We'll ask
to-
Jan,
Three seats,
we'll ask
three
Jan
people
about
running.
that.
But
When would the school,
Unless
when
there's a
after
write-in.
the election, you know, when would
there's a
the
write-in.
new person be
Who's
able to
expected to be
attend
on
the
the
meeting?
select
Would it be the next day, or
big
is there a required certification?
Well, and since it's an open meeting, they could attend the meeting.
Oh, they could attend
definitely,
anyway.
But the question is, could they vote?
Yes,
I'll ask Jan.
That's the
Yeah.
question.
Because if that, so the 12th and the application deadline, so they're gonna come right in as usual with the Baker Adams.
yeah.
That's a big job for
That's
them
a
to
big
come
one,
into.
yeah.
But,
It is, yeah.
okay, so the chair will entertain a motion to approve the Baker Adams scholarship process and timeline. I'm not gonna do that, because,
If you're changing the application, I don't know if I'll have it done for Monday.
I think
But
it's,
then we
I think
can't-
they're getting a form.
They're having a meeting on Monday to,
okay, but wouldn't that mean then that we can't approve it till the 28th? If we don't approve it now? And then how it wouldn't be able to be distributed?
What's the worry? I'm sorry.
The
You-
form.
But you're gonna approve, you're approving the timeline,
getting
right?
this out by Monday, I don't know, cause I don't know where this form is, so.
If we can't find the form, we're gonna make appropriate verbiage that I think the kids need to understand what we're trying to accomplish.
It's the,
in
is it the
getting.
total
It's the-
numbers,
it's
number
the-
of
it's-
hours?
Right. It's the total number of hours that we're looking for, because I think in the past, what I have found is that some children apply and don't say
They don't make
the
it
action.
clear,
Don't make
really,
it clear how many
how
hours that
many
they've had.
hours.
Well,
But
we
then
can-
it has
then, you know what,
been-
then we don't need the form. I would say we can very simply just change how it's worded. And we can do a,
And we can ask Sandra and the guidance office if, when they
Or you could just say
distribute it.
total number of hours reported to guidance.
Well, that,
I mean,
yeah,
or-
and,
but
and that they should match. That's
Yeah,
what I
because
wanna get
they might
across, is that
do
they should
different
match.
community service, right? So, I mean, I don't know whether or not they report every hour that they do. Like if they do church community service, if they,
Well, I don't, at
do
the
you have
last
time to
gradu-
look at it tomorrow, Harvey?
maybe.
Maybe
I
just-
don't until
just-
maybe like 2 o'clock. I just have a crazy morning tomorrow, but
Okay.
if,
Well,
I just need a reminder. I
just
need
because at
somebody to,
the-
I need a
Well, at
reminder
the
somewhere,
last
look at
graduation,
it.
there were students that were,
My brain is fried when I've been running around all
recognized,
morning.
and I
And I
hadn't
have to
seen
get
that
my
in the
dog to the
past
vet at 6 a.m.
at graduations, which led me to believe that this particular year,
so I know
we
I'm gonna be
did have like 9 students that had, you know, he recognized 100 hours, 200 hours, 300, I think he went up to 500 hours.
but they
That's-
weren't necessarily reflected on a Baker Adams
Correct.
scholarship.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do think that that makes a big difference, because the whole purpose, well,
wasn't it
a
a-
large purpose of the Baker Adams Scholarship is community service.
Like, it was something like school year, the volunteer service, and then the hours. It was that, you know, and you just they had it listed, something like this.
Yeah, like a
Right.
tally, yeah.
And just number of hours, and, you know, what you did, how many hours did you do it during that school year, right? So.
So do you
or
wanna
the-
take a stab at just doing the form?
Well,
And
that's
then-
what I'm
and then
saying.
Send it to
It's
Laura, she
just-
can put
I
Georgetown
don't,
Public Schools.
I don't have time
We
to do
could
it
do that.
tomorrow.
Is
but-
that school
do it.
year?
Did you
community
write, did you write
service,
it, did you write out, can you
number
draw
of
it out?
hours?
Yeah, I just did.
Okay, pass it over.
Roughly.
Is that what you did?
Copy that and hand it out.
School year, the
Volunteer service performed. It's my very
year,
Number
I
of
know.
hours.
volunteers,
numbers.
and then the
totals
number of
at the
hours.
bottom.
And I do
Yeah.
think I do think it should say,
Figure it out.
should match up with the guidance office.
Yeah, you could put that in
I
there.
do
Put it at the
think that-
bottom.
Should
yeah.
match
Number
with,
should match with
Number
the
should
number of the
match with
guide.
the.
reported to
okay.
guidance.
We'll take care of it tomorrow.
Take care of that. Makes sense.
Okay, so
So now you can approve
You know,
it.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the Baker Adams Scholarship process and timeline as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
I love
Thank
voting
you.
on things that I won't be around to do.
Barbie, could you just do an executive session for literally 2 minutes? I guess something was raised today, I wanna ask you.
Sure, how do we, now,
And it would
these,
be for, what would it be for?
well, if we have subcommittee reports, I wanna limit them. I want a basic.
Oh, I forgot we had
I just want
subcommittee
basic
reports.
subcommittee reports, like you met, everything's going great. Unless they're not.
Unless they're not.
Right, but let us know what it is, yeah,
That's
Budget and
doable.
finance, we already talked about.
okay, budget and finance,
That's short.
negotiations, we're in the process, things are going well.
Said goodbye to everyone on the safety committee this morning. It was a sweet
I
meeting. It was
know.
lovely.
They are
And we're in good hands.
Okay, that's great, thank you.
We continue to be in good hands. Very, very short and sweet.
Governance was
And I took
canceled.
all
Yep,
these
that
notes
was-
on my
that's
phone.
really short.
Barbie,
Sorry about
I
that.
just want you to see
I
all
look
the
forward
notes
to the
I
next
took on
one.
my phone this morning.
She did, I knew she was taking notes on her phone.
But that's
Let
okay.
us know,
The minutes will be
they'll
through.
be in the next packet.
Public relations, our next meeting is April 29th,
Yeah.
I believe.
Coming up.
What is?
They didn't go for not.
Our
April
public
29th.
relations, our
April
next meeting is
29th.
April 29th. School building committee, the next meeting is April 14th, and there will
Don't
be
forget to come on
A
the
tour,
tour.
yeah.
a tour
It,
before.
now, that didn't get changed. Michelle didn't
No.
want to change that, huh? Okay.
CPAC, there will be no meeting in May that I'm aware of.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, I do just want to recognize the gala coming up on
Oh, yes.
Saturday.
Oh, yes.
GEF Gala, always a great time.
Sparkle and shine.
Very generous group of people that put together this wonderful event. It's at the Black Swan. People will be recognized, grants will be given out, which is wonderful. I wanna wish the kids going off to the Disney trip and
Yes.
their families that are going off, which I'm one of them. Are you
Yes,
one
you
of them?
are, no?
So I'm looking forward to a great trip. I wish them the best, a safe, happy, and enjoyable time.
Absolutely.
And we look forward to hearing all about it when they come back. So at this point, 10:11 PM, we are going to adjourn, go into executive session, chapter 30A, section 21, for the purpose of
Personnel.
for the purpose of personnel discussion. We will not be returning to open session. No roll call, correct?
We do need
Yes.
roll call.
We do need, okay, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Great. Thank you, have a good night.